Oh my gosh, it's the emerald creaking. He just gave me full netherite armor. I'm so lucky, guys.
These are the funniest fake Minecraft speedruns of all time. This first speedrun begins, but there's already something fake about it. Because take a very close look into the top left corner of the screen, where you can see a wool block that is clearly the color blue. And not only was this obviously placed by the runner in creative mode, but remember it for later as it will become very important. Either way, besides a random wool block, the rest of his spawn is actually pretty normal. He's in survival mode, he's selecting the very first slot of his inventory, and he is facing perfectly straight. But things already start to get suspicious when the runner locates a nearby village. Because as the runner makes his way inside, did you catch that? While he is casually entering the village, this iron golem turns from completely standard to pure gold. And not only is it obvious a gold golem is not a real Minecraft mob, you can clearly see there were 0 cuts in the recording, and this golem has suddenly just transformed. So, the runner makes his way inside, where after collecting some wood and crafting some tools, he of course heads straight for the gold golem. And somehow, when the runner kills this golem, he actually drops gold ingots for the speedrunner. And once again, there are no cuts here either. This gold golem just actually dropped gold. I'm so confused. So, with a bit of gold in his inventory, the run continues with the speedrunner collecting a few beds and gathering some hay. But when the runner opens his inventory, he realizes he has one huge problem. Because do you remember how the gold golem dropped gold ingots? Well, the runner now realizes he doesn't have any iron ingots in his inventory, meaning he can't craft flint and steel and won't be able to light a nether portal. But that's until... what? A flint and steel suddenly falls from the sky and drops directly in front of the speedrunner. And what's even funnier is the sound effect the runner added to this part of the speedrun. You can't be serious. So, with a flint and steel in his inventory, the runner quickly begins searching for a ruins portal. And he actually locates one very quickly, and without any cuts in his recording or any suspicious activity. And to add on, the loot in this ruin portal chest is also completely normal. But right after the runner lights the ruin portal, let's take a closer look at this block, which isn't actually a block of gold like a normal ruins portal is supposed to have, but is instead a piece of yellow wool. And remember this yellow wool along with the piece of blue wool we saw at the beginning of the speedrun. So, the runner grabs his flint and steel, lights the portal, and finally spawns into the nether, where to his credit, he's still in survival mode, and he hasn't gained any weird potion effects in the top corner of the screen. But when the runner turns around, he finds a random chest waiting for him. But the chest doesn't actually contain any overpowered items like you might think, but instead contains what appears to be a singular compass. Interesting. Well, I hate to break it to you, but this compass is nowhere near ordinary, because when the runner clicks on it, a message appears in chat explaining that it has just located another fortress and that the compass is now pointing towards that very structure. And all the runner has to do is follow the exact direction the compass is leading him, where he actually manages to locate a nether fortress. Alright, how in the world did the runner turn this ordinary looking compass into a fortress finder? So, the runner enters the fortress, where to his credit, he does the pretty standard activity of looting a chest and searching for a blaze spawner room. But as the runner is making his way towards the room, let's take a very close look at this fortress wall, where if you look closely, you'll actually notice a piece of red wool that is hidden amongst the nether bricks. And this is getting very weird, as this is the third different colored wool the runner has seen throughout the speedrun. Interesting. Anyway, the runner finally locates the blaze spawner, where he drinks a potion of fire resistance. Hold on a second. Since when did the runner casually gain a potion of fire resistance? Because literally 1 minute ago, before the runner entered the nether, we could very clearly see he didn't have a single one anywhere in his inventory. Well, let's rewind the footage to about 15 seconds ago, when the runner was casually running throughout the fortress. Because if you take a close look at his inventory, this block of netherrack magically immediately morphs into a potion of fire resistance. And I'll replay the footage. You can clearly see there aren't any cuts, and this piece of netherrack has literally just transformed. And I have no idea how, but this runner must have the power to morph any item that he wants. So, with a fire resistance potion equipped, it's quite easy for the runner to fight blazes without worrying about taking damage. And to give credit where it's due, the runner shows off some pretty impressive skill, collecting 7 blaze rods pretty quickly. But I can't give out that same credit when the runner starts looking for a bastion, because you gotta be kidding me. The runner finds some sort of structure, which is apparently called the Bastion Teleporter? There is no way this is real. Well, the runner makes his way towards this Timu looking structure, where he enters it and closes the door. And just a few seconds later, when the runner reopens the same door, oh my gosh, the runner is now suddenly right in front of a bastion. And you can clearly see the runner entered and left the Bastion Teleporter into completely different areas. Which means this Wish.com teleporter actually just worked. So, after somehow locating a bastion, the runner makes his way inside, where he does the usual. Mine a few gold blocks, turn the gold blocks into ingots, and find a group of nearby piglins to trade with. But this speedrunner seems to have a weird fascination with this specific piglin. Because even though he has a bunch of gold in his inventory, he's clearly only throwing it at this specific one. And just a couple of seconds later, what? The runner literally picks up this piglin, where he carries it to the complete opposite side of the bastion and starts trading with it away from every other piglin. Okay, hold on a second. How in the world did the runner just pick up a piglin? Was that some sort of mechanic added in the new update? Either way, you're probably extremely confused as to why the runner is doing this, because trading with different piglins would actually help the runner get trades more quickly, which is important considering this is a speed run. Well, the runner must know something about this specific piglin that we don't, because after less than 15 seconds of trading, when the runner opens his inventory, he somehow has collected 20 ender pearls from a single piglin. Alright, hold on. To start, the odds of getting 20 pearls from just a few trades is nearly impossible. But secondly, this speedrunner somehow has 20 ender pearls in one single slot, which is simply impossible, as the maximum stack for ender pearls is only 16. This part of the speedrun is so unbelievable, I think it's best we just move on. So, after collecting an insane amount of pearls from this piglin, a normal speedrunner would then create another portal and head back towards the overworld. But when the runner opens his inventory, he quickly realizes that he's only collected 1 block of obsidian, which is obviously not enough to create a portal, and he can't head back towards the overworld. Well, this is when the runner has the bright idea of typing in the command /nether_portal. Alright, I've been playing Minecraft for a long time. I am certain this isn't a real command. What? After entering the command, the runner somehow just summoned a nether portal out of thin air. And not only that, but this portal also comes lit and ready to use. And just to make sure I wasn't going crazy, after typing this exact same command in my own Minecraft world, I can confirm it does not work. So how in the world the runner managed to add a custom command into Minecraft, I have zero idea. So, the runner somehow summons a portal, enters it, and makes his way back into the overworld. And immediately after he spawns in, the runner turns his blaze rods into blaze powder and quickly crafts Eyes of Ender. But this speedrunner does not use the famous process of triangulation like you might expect, because as he is casually running throughout the overworld, what? The runner finds a broomstick? Since when was a broomstick a real Minecraft item? Well, of course. The runner is curious and immediately jumps on the broomstick, where it somehow starts moving on its own and starts leading the runner in a very specific direction. I mean, why am I surprised? A broomstick is a magical thing after all, right? Well, after a bit more flying, the broomstick heads towards the ground at this specific group of blocks. Okay, I know this item is magical, but there is no way it just led the runner to the exact location of the strongholds. You gotta be kidding me. The speedrunner did digs down straight into the stronghold. I have no words. So, the runner enters the stronghold, where things appear to be very normal at a first glance, as the runner fights off a few mobs and loots this stronghold chest, which contains completely normal items. But as the runner is looking for the end portal room, pause the footage at this frame, where we can see yet another wool block, this time being purple. And remember this block along with the 3 other different colors, as they will become very important soon. So, after just a bit more searching in the stronghold, the runner finally locates the end portal room, where he quickly lights the portal and spawns into the ends. But unfortunately, there is already something incredibly fake about it. And no, it's not anything in his inventory, as we can clearly see he has standard items. And it's not anything to do with this spawn, as the runner is obviously on an obsidian platform. But when the runner makes his way to the surface, what? He finds a strange looking chest which somehow spawned there naturally. But pause. Do you remember how throughout the speedrun, this guy has seen a bunch of differently colored wool blocks? To start, the first piece of wool he found was a blue one at the very beginning of the run. Next, he found a piece of yellow wool that was pretending to be gold at the ruins portal. After that, the runner saw a piece of red wool in the fortress, and just a few seconds ago, the runner found a piece of purple wool in the strongholds. Well, when the runner goes to open the chest, it's protected by a password, which if you couldn't already tell, is made up of a combination of different colors. And because the runner saw 4 distinct colors throughout the speedrun, that is of course the exact 4 colors he needs as the password. And when he enters them, he manages to unlock the chest, which contains some of Minecraft's most overpowered items. Diamonds, emerald blocks, god apples, and even a netherite sword. And with this assortment of absolutely insane loot, it's not a surprise that the speedrunner demolishes the ender dragon. This next speedrun begins, and right off the bat, there's something incredibly suspicious about it. And surprisingly, it actually has nothing to do with the runner's world generation, as we could clearly see it was normal. And it's actually not a spawn either, as the runner is clearly facing straight. But let's actually take a closer look at this speedrunner's webcam in the top left corner, because right as the runner starts moving, you'll actually notice that both of his hands are in the air. And this is incredibly suspicious, because his hands being in the air mean they clearly aren't on the keyboard. So how in the world is it possible that the runner is even moving? Well, besides that very suspicious beginning, the rest of the run begins with the speedrunner locating a nearby village. But wait a second, this speedrunner just did it again, because as the runner is clearly moving his mouse to grab loot from this village chest, you can see him taking selfies in the top left corner of the screen. So as you're probably wondering, who in the world is actually playing Minecraft in this speedrun? Because it's clearly not Mr. Instagram in the top left corner. So the speedrun continues with the runner gathering some hay, collecting a couple of beds, and beginning to fight the iron golem. And giving the speedrunner the benefit of the doubt, he's finally not distracted by his phone, and I think it's more than likely he's actually fighting this golem pretty normally. But maybe I spoke too soon, because right as the runner is about to kill the iron golem, you can literally see him drinking the most obnoxiously large bottle of Fanta that I've ever seen. And while the runner is clearly distracted and not playing Minecraft, somebody is actually killing the iron golem and collecting a bunch of ingots. What is going on? Well, after getting some iron from the golem and collecting a flint, the runner quickly crafts flint and steel, where he starts searching for a ruined portal. And if I have to give the runner some credit, he actually does seem to be focused now, and he locates a ruined portal without a single bit of suspicious activity. But as the speedrunner is about to place his obsidian blocks in the ruined portal, is that McDonald's? Okay, this has to be a joke. There's no way. The runner literally pulls some fries out of the bag and starts eating them during the speedrun. Wait, but not only that, because while somebody is placing blocks of obsidian in the portal, the runner literally pulls out a burger and starts eating it, all while he's somehow lighting the portal while using flint and steel. At this point, I'm convinced this guy isn't even the one playing Minecraft. So, the speedrunner finally enters the Nether, where thankfully, things actually seem pretty normal, with the runner spawning in with the exact same items as he did in the overworld, and without magically gaining any potion effects in the top right corner. But the speedrunner actually has a quick message to make before he starts looking for the fortress, explaining in chat that he has to leave and take care of something. Well, it seems like the speedrunner has something to take care of, which I guess isn't out of the ordinary. But this guy messes up big time, because you can actually see him get up and leave before he remembers to turn off his camera. And 30 seconds later, while the speedrunner thinks his webcam is turned off, he returns to his setup carrying a laptop. This is just hilarious at this point. Now, we unfortunately aren't able to see what the runner is doing on this computer, but he does a few things in-game to give us some clues. Because right after the runner returns from getting his laptop, you can see him type /seed in the chat, which is a command used to tell you the seed of the Minecraft world you're playing on. And right after the speedrunner does this, you can clearly see that he's searching something up on his laptop. Now, I can't actually confirm this for sure, but I'm pretty confident that this speedrunner is on a Minecraft fortress locator website, and the reason he just looked for his Minecraft seed was for the exact purpose of putting it into the website so he could locate the exact coordinates of the fortress. And if you weren't convinced by my theory, when the runner opens his F3 menu and follows a very specific path directly to a fortress, I think it's more than likely that this is what happened. And not only does that explain why the runner grabbed his laptop, but he needs to remember to turn off his webcam. So, the runner quickly enters the fortress. We're giving him credit. He does actually get the achievement for entering into it. And after looting a fortress chest, he actually manages to find a blaze spawner without much suspicious activity. But why did the speedrunner just leave? And while the speedrunner is seemingly taking a phone call, somebody is actually fighting and killing these blazes. And while we can clearly see the runner far away from his keyboard, he somehow collects 7 blaze rods. But I'm honestly more curious about what this guy was on the phone for. So, the runner finally returns to his desk, and thankfully, it appears as though he finally starts to play, as he quickly leaves the fortress and starts searching for a bastion. However, the speedrunner then does something incredibly sneaky to try to cheat, because he decides to move his face cam into the bottom left corner of the screen, which is very odd as it's been in the top left the entire speedrun. Well, right after the runner decides to do this, he of course now seems to know the exact location a bastion is located. Well, if you haven't caught on, the runner actually used this face cam to cheat once again, because he put it in the bottom left corner of the screen, because that's the exact same place where chat and commands are in Minecraft. So I think it's obvious the runner is trying to hide the fact that he actually used a /locate command for the bastion. And to prove this one step further, you can literally hear him typing on his keyboard, confirming to us that he was typing in a /locate command. So, after clearly cheating in his method of locating the bastion, the runner quickly enters inside, where a normal speedrunner would immediately collect gold blocks to trade with the piglins. The only problem is this: the runner doesn't have a single iron pickaxe anywhere in their inventory, meaning they have 0 way to mine any gold blocks and therefore can't trade with piglins. Well, even without an iron pickaxe, the runner decides to start mining this gold block with his fist? Alright, I don't want to be mean, but is this guy a noob? Everybody knows you can't mine gold with your fist. What? He manages to successfully mine a piece of gold with his hand, and he actually collects the gold block. And just to confirm this is fake, after loading into my very own Minecraft world, you can clearly see nothing drops after you mine a block of gold with your fist. So I might have underestimated this speedrunner, because that was absolutely insane. So, after mining 3 more gold blocks with his fist, the runner quickly turns the block into ingots, where he starts to trade with a group of nearby piglins. And thankfully, literally every single thing about these trades are completely normal, as the runner gets very standard loot and nothing overpowered. But it isn't the gameplay that is fake at this part of the run, but actually the speedrunner himself. And I'm gonna warn you, what you are about to see is so dumb I can't think of a single explanation for it. Because while the runner is quite literally in the middle of throwing gold at the piglins, he pulls out a blender and actually starts to make some sort of smoothie. Alright, first off, why in the world is the speedrunner using a blender at his gaming setup? But secondly, while he's doing this, his character is still moving and making trades with the piglins. And I'm sorry, if I had a single explanation for what in the world this guy was thinking, I tell you guys. So, after whipping out a blender during his speedrun, he gets all the ender pearls and blocks of obsidian that he needs from the piglins, where he starts to build himself a nether portal to travel back to the overworld. But not only is this guy terrible at hiding his cheating, but he is also just terrible at Minecraft, because he accidentally misplaces one of his blocks of obsidian, meaning he now has no way of finishing the nether portal. But I think this guy gave up in trying to hide his cheating, because you can see that he just starts typing a command to give him the extra block of obsidian, where he then completes the portal. So, the runner lights the portal, spawns into the overworld, and I'm shocked. He actually crafts Eyes of Ender, and despite cheating throughout the entire speedrun, he starts using the process of triangulation like any normal speedrunner would, and he actually locates the position of the strongholds without a bit of suspicious activity. But things get absolutely hilarious when he starts digging down into the strongholds, because if you thought eating McDonald's or making a smoothie during the speedrun was funny, he decides to grab his backpack, take out a notebook, and literally starts doing his homework. You know what? At least this guy is responsible enough to remember his assignments. But why is he doing them while he's in the middle of a Minecraft speedrun? So, the runner finally enters the strongholds, where somebody is looting the chests and locating the End's portal room, where the runner finally sets down his homework to grab his Eyes of Ender and quickly light the End's portal. And while his spawn into the End is actually pretty normal, with the runner still being in survival mode and without gaining any strange potions, but when the runner goes into F5 mode, what in the world? This speedrunner's player has suddenly turned miniature. Is that even possible? And wait, 5 seconds ago when he was in the strongholds, we could clearly see the runner was perfectly normal sized. What was glitched about this End portal? Well, literally being miniature, it's actually pretty hard for the runner to break the crystals. But once he finally does, the runner turns his focus to trying to kill the Ender Dragon. And the speedrunner, despite being incredibly small, is actually putting up a pretty decent fight. The only problem is, you'll notice this speedrunner isn't even at his computer. And as the runner literally kills the Ender Dragon and is gathering all of his XP, he isn't even on the screen and is nowhere to be found. So who is the one who is actually beating this speedrun? This next speedrun begins, and hold on a second. Did I just see the message that an admin has joined the game? Okay, first off, not only does this prove that the runner is on a multiplayer server, something that is clearly banned from a solo speedrun, but how did an admin manage to even join his world? Well, I guess the rest of his spawn is pretty normal, as the runner is in survival mode, and we can clearly see that he's facing perfectly straight. But things already start getting crazy when the runner makes his way into this nearby village. Because while the runner is casually gathering some hay, an entire blacksmith spawns out of thin air. Let me replay that. This blacksmith quite literally just appeared out of nowhere. And while I can't confirm it for sure, the only possible explanation is the admin who joined the world earlier must be the one doing this. Well, after gathering a couple of beds, the runner makes his way inside this magical blacksmith. But the chest inside doesn't contain a bunch of overpowered loot like you'd probably expect, which is a surprise considering this chest came from a house that spawned out of thin air. Well, after looting the chest, a message suddenly appears in the chat from the admin, who tells the speedrunner to recheck the very same chest. And of course, when the runner opens the chest for the second time, it now contains every single item you'd ever need to enter the nether. And I'll replay the clip. You can clearly see there wasn't a single cut anywhere, meaning this admin must have some pretty good admin powers. Well, after looting the chest, you'd probably expect the runner to use the obsidian he just got to quickly build a nether portal and make his way into the nether. But the admin quickly types in chat, telling the runner to instead search for a ruined portal. Very interesting. Well, the runner decides to take the admin's advice and begins his search for a ruined portal. And I guess if I have to give him credit, the ruined portal he does locate doesn't seem to be fake at all. But when the runner opens the ruined portal chest, oh my gosh. I've reviewed hundreds of speedruns, and let me tell you, this might be the craziest one that I've ever seen. And not only is this weapon so absurd that it doesn't even fully fit on the screen, I think it's obvious this is one of the admin's overpowered weapons. And I guess the runner couldn't resist trying it out because he starts to destroy every single being in sight. That was insane. So, with one of the world's most menacing weapons, the runner quickly finishes building the portal, lights it, and heads into the nether. And when the runner spawns in, I do have to admit that things look pretty standard, as the runner is still in survival mode and he spawned in facing the exact same direction as he did in the overworld. But as the runner starts searching throughout the nether for a bastion, something suddenly drops out of the sky, and it appears to be some sort of rainbow ender pearl. This wasn't part of the new update, was it? Well, immediately after the runner grabs this ender pearl, the admin types in chat, explaining that this pearl is actually magical and will teleport the runner to wherever he types. And being that the runner was in the middle of looking for a bastion, he quickly types bastion in the chat. Alright, I know this admin has some crazy powers, but it's simply impossible for this pearl to teleport him into a bastion. Oh my gosh. This rainbow pearl somehow drops the runner straight into a bastion, despite the fact that we clearly didn't see a single bastion anywhere in this area. And I'm not going to lie, this admin might be more overpowered than Notch himself. So, the runner somehow teleports into the bastion, where he does the usual, collect gold blocks, turn them into ingots, and start trading with piglins. And while things look to be normal during the runner's first few trades, I think you know that this admin is about to do something crazy, because suddenly, the runner sees a golden piglin. And while it's obvious this was spawned in by the admin, how did he even manage to get a gold piglin into Minecraft? But it doesn't stop there, because this gold piglin doesn't just give you ordinary traits, because this runner literally collects 64 ender pearls, 32 blocks of obsidian, and 8 potions of fire resistance. This admin just created the world's most overpowered piglin. So, with way more loot than the runner would ever need, he quickly begins a search for a nearby fortress, and he actually manages to locate one pretty quickly without an ounce of suspicious activity. The only problem is, this fortress is located on the opposite side of a huge lava pool, and the runner not only doesn't have enough blocks, but I guess he is too scared to throw an ender pearl, scared he will miss his throw and die in the speedrun. Well, that's when the runner places down his crafting table, where he crafts a bridge gun? Is this a real Minecraft item? Well, the runner grabs the bridge gun, and after aiming it directly at the fortress, he magically summons a bridge out of thin air, giving him a direct path straight to the fortress. And because I'm pretty sure this item was not a part of the new update, the admin must have created this item himself. So, after summoning his very own bridge, the runner quickly makes his way into the fortress, where, after collecting some loot from a fortress chest, he drinks one of the 8 fire resistance potions he got from the gold piglin, and quickly locates a blaze spawner room. But watch closely to what happens when the runner kills this specific blaze, because somehow this blaze actually drops 2 blaze rods. And this is already very suspicious, as the max amount of rods a blaze can normally drop is only 1. Well, let's rewind the footage to just a few seconds ago to see what is really happening, because if you look closely at the right corner of the screen, you can actually see an enchantment book floating in mid-air, and just a few frames later, you can now see an iron axe floating in the exact exact same spot. Now, not only are these items clearly being held by the admin while using an invisibility potion, but I'm almost certain that these two items are how the runner got extra blaze rods. Because in Minecraft, the only way to get more than one blaze rod per drop is if you have the looting enchantment on a weapon. And just a couple of seconds after the runner saw these floating items, he suddenly has an enchanted iron axe in his inventory. The exact same axe he used to kill the blaze who gave him 2 blaze rods. So this is what happened. This book the admin was holding was clearly a looting enchantment, which he applied to the iron axe he was also holding. And using some sort of admin command, he transferred that item straight to the runner's inventory, which he then used to get 2 blaze rods from this blaze. And just to confirm this, 30 seconds later when the runner opens his inventory, he accidentally reveals that this axe does in fact have a looting enchantment. And even though I caught them cheating, they almost got away with it. Well, with an iron axe that gives insanely lucky blaze rod drops, the runner manages to collect the 7 rods that he needs extremely quickly, where a normal speedrunner would then build another portal and head back towards the overworld. But I think the admin has something else in mind, because he quickly types in chat, giving the runner 3 coordinates for a quote-unquote surprise. And the runner of course agrees and follows the coordinates. And honestly, I don't think you're ready for this, because when the runner reaches these very coordinates, oh my gosh, this is the craziest looking nether portal that I've literally ever seen. Is this a portal made out of a sword? This is actually insane. And not to mention, there's of course a sign with the admin portal label. Alright, this admin might be the coolest Minecraft player ever. Well, the runner makes his way towards the portal, enters it, and spawns back into the overworld, where he immediately decides to craft his Eyes of Ender. And this leads me to believe he's going to start throwing them in the air and use a very popular technique known as triangulation to locate the strongholds. But that guess couldn't be further from the truth, because all of a sudden, the runner sees a Colosseum? Okay, I'm 99.9% sure a Colosseum is not a naturally generating Minecraft structure. Well, of course, the speedrunner is clearly curious, so he makes his way towards the Colosseum and enters inside, where he comes face to face with the admin, who is wearing full netherite armor and holding an enchanted sword. And right after he notices the admin, he looks in the chat where the admin explains that for him to continue the run, he must defeat him. Things just got serious. Well, despite the admin having full netherite armor and an enchanted sword, he's made one big mistake. Because do you remember when earlier in the speedrun, the admin actually gave the runner Minecraft's most overpowered weapon? Well, the runner decides to pull it out, and despite the admin having full netherite armor, he gets destroyed in just a few hits. And I can't believe it, but this speedrunner just beat one of the craziest Minecraft players that I've ever seen. Well, after destroying the admin, the runner of course has to steal some of his loot. And apart from the netherite armor and the sword, the runner actually finds one more item that's more overpowered than all, which is this singular command block, which is an item that can only be obtained with cheats. Well, the runner grabs the command block where he starts typing in a very specific command. And after placing a button on it, the runner is teleported directly into the end dimension. That was a lot to process. So, the runner spawns into the end, and things do actually seem fairly normal, as the runner is still in survival mode, and apart from the overpowered admin weapon, everything else in his inventory is pretty normal. And things only get more legit, as the runner starts breaking some crystals without any suspicious activity. But as the runner is casually running throughout the end, the admin appears out of nowhere, and literally kills the runner in 2 hits. And sadly, when the runner tries to rejoin the world, he has unfortunately been banned from the server. So I guess the speedrun just ends there. This next speedrun begins, and unfortunately, there is already something incredibly fake about it. And no, it actually doesn't have anything to do with the runner's generation screen, as we could clearly see his game mode was set to survival. And it actually isn't the position of the spawn itself, as the runner is facing perfectly straight, but it's actually the location of the speedrunner spawn. Because when the runner opens his F3 menu, do you notice it? Well, in Minecraft, you will always spawn within a few hundred blocks of the origin, which is located at 000. However, as you can clearly see by this player's coordinates, he is well beyond a few hundred blocks, with his X coordinate literally being at 2,000. And this quite literally proves that this spawn location is completely fake, and not only does this mean that the runner has made a cut in his recording, but it is very likely that he is using a set seed. But let's give the runner the benefit of the doubt, as the rest of his spawn looks to be very standard, as the runner mines some wood, crafts a few tools, and makes his way into a suspiciously close plains village. But as the runner is collecting some hay, we get more details as to why the runner faked his world generation, because at this part of the footage, the runner accidentally reveals some of the tabs he has open. And apart from Minecraft and YouTube, let's take a closer look at the final tab the runner has open, which is quite literally a Google document called Minecraft Seeds, which has an entire page filled with seeds ready for the runner to use. So I think it's incredibly obvious that the reason the runner had to edit his world generation was so he could use one of these Minecraft seeds to gain an advantage. Well, after using the hay he gathered to craft some bread and collecting a few beds in the village, the run continues with the speedrunner going to loot this village chest. But hold on a second, did you catch that? Right before the runner is about to open the chest, let's take a very close look outside this village window, where you can actually see the amount of daylight outside completely change. And because the time of day changes gradually in Minecraft and not at an instant like we just saw, this means the speedrunner has made yet another cut in his recording. So when he opens the village chest and finds some pretty overpowered items, including a potion of fire resistance which can't even spawn naturally in a village chest, it's obvious that the runner cut his footage so he could go off camera and place the overpowered items in the chest himself. This guy just can't stop cheating. So, after collecting all of the loot from this village chest, the speedrunner grabs one extra bed and starts to search for a ruins portal, where, to his credit, is what a normal speedrunner would do at this point, so everything seems legit. But that's until... what? Okay, seriously, what in the world am I looking at here? He finds a ruins portal with 4 portals stacked on top of each other, and each is already lit with a different color. Okay, I've reviewed hundreds of fake speedruns, and this honestly might be the craziest thing that I've ever seen. Well, I guess the runner is feeling the green nether portal because he quickly loots the ruin portal chest and makes his way straight into it. But when the runner spawns in, what? He spawns in some sort of brand new dimension that has some of the strangest colors I've ever seen. And what type of cursed mob is the runner even looking at? Alright, there is no way this was part of the new update. Well, the speedrunner must be scared because he quickly heads back towards this portal as a way to leave this crazy dimension. And you're probably expecting him to spawn back into the overworld in the exact same place he originally entered the portal. But when the runner spawns back in, what? He not only spawns into the nether, but right in the middle of a nether fortress. And I'm sorry, I wish I had an explanation for what in the world is even happening. So, after the runner somehow spawns straight into a fortress from a green portal, things finally seem to be a bit more normal, with the runner looting a fortress chest, drinking the potion of fire resistance he got from the village, and quickly locating a blaze spawner. All completely legit. But if you've learned one thing about this speedrun, it's that things don't stay normal for too long. Because instead of blazes spawning at the blaze spawner, sheep start spawning instead. Wait, is that even possible? We can clearly see the mob inside this spawner is a blaze. How in the world are sheep spawning here? Well, that's not even the craziest thing about this part of the run, because instead of dropping wool like a normal sheep would, they instead drop blaze rods. Let me replay that. There are no cuts in the recording. The runner literally just killed these sheep and got free blaze rods. And I wish I had an idea on how the runner just pulled this off, but I'm at a loss for words. So, after killing just a couple more sheep, the runner already has 7 blaze rods, and with enough rods in his inventory, the next item that the runner needs to collect is ender pearls, where a normal speedrunner would likely search for a bastion to get them from piglin trades. But this runner instead comes across what? Alright, this building not only looks insane, but there is no way it is a real Minecraft structure. Well, the runner makes his way into this menacing looking structure, where he comes face to face with the Nether Warden, who pulls out a sword and leads the runner to a chest with an insane amount of ender pearls. Wait, I thought this guy was about to kill our speedrunner, but he instead just led him to Minecraft's most overpowered chests. And after looting it, the warden literally types in chat, "Thank you for visiting." This might be the nicest warden that I've literally ever seen. But don't get distracted. This structure is still definitely not real. Well, after getting 4 stacks of ender pearls from the Nether Warden and enough blaze rods from the fortress, the runner now has enough items to head back to the overworld. But when the runner goes to check his inventory, he quickly realizes the only thing he is missing is obsidian. And without obsidian, the runner has no way to build another portal and therefore can't head back towards the overworld. Well, that's when out of nowhere, the Nether Warden reappears, and after pulling out a single redstone torch, the Nether Warden spawns in a portal out of thin air. And I'll replay the footage. There are no cuts at all. This warden somehow just summoned a fully built portal for the runner to use. And I don't know what powers this warden has, but that was absolutely insane. So, after entering a portal that was quite literally spawned out of thin air, the runner makes his way back into the overworld. And right away, the runner crafts Eyes of Ender, where you're probably expecting him to use the process of triangulation to locate the position of the strongholds. But that's until... what? The runner finds a pig with a literal boat on it, and he is also named the Stronghold Pig? Okay, there is no way the Stronghold Pig is a real Minecraft mob. Well, the runner makes his way towards this strange looking mob, where he decides to enter the boat. And somehow, the pig literally starts moving on its own, where it is clearly going in a very specific direction. Alright, there is no way the Stronghold Pig actually knows the location of the strongholds. Well, very shortly after the runner originally got on the pig, it suddenly stops moving, where the runner, trusting that this pig knows what it's doing, starts to dig down at that very spot. Alright, there is no way this actually works. What? The Stronghold Pig actually leads the runner directly into the strongholds. I think I may have seen it all in Minecraft speedrunning. So, the runner somehow drops into the stronghold, where after looting a stronghold chest, he quickly makes his way into the end portal room. But when the runner goes to check the portal, what? Some of the end portal is somehow already lit, despite the fact that only a few eyes are in the frames. Now, do you remember at the beginning of the speedrun when we found out the runner was using a set seed? Well, I think it's obvious the runner purposely chose a seed where the end portal was glitched and somehow lit on its own. That way he wouldn't have to worry about filling the end portal for himself. And even though we figured out this part of the run is fake, that doesn't change the fact that this portal looks insanely cursed. So, the runner jumps into this cursed portal where he actually manages to spawn in the end. And because he spawns on an obsidian platform and without any strange potion effects in the top right corner of the screen, it may look like everything is normal about this end. But all of a sudden, a bright white flash suddenly takes over the speedrunner's vision. Was there some sort of smoke bomb that went off? Well, whatever the case may be, when the runner regains his vision after the smoke bomb, what? The end dimension has quite literally turned overpowered. Was this some sort of magical smoke bomb? How did everything change so quickly? Well, not only did this smoke bomb turn the entire surface overpowered and all of the obsidian pillars into pure quartz, but when the runner locates the ender dragon, it has quite literally transformed into the netherite ender dragon. And this dragon is so incredibly strong that even after breaking all of the crystals and literally cheating by typing in a command to get a netherite sword, the runner cannot do a single tick of damage to the dragon. Look, he is hitting this dragon with a pure netherite sword, but his health bar has stayed the exact same. And I guess this angered the speedrunner so much because he literally just opens his menu and quits the game. I wonder if he ever finished the speedrun. This next speedrun begins, and right off the bat, there's already something completely fake about it. And no, it actually doesn't have anything to do with the runner's loading screen, as we can clearly see he has it set to survival mode. And it isn't even the direction he's facing either, as the runner is perfectly straight and parallel with the surrounding blocks. But hold on a second, we missed something huge, because I'm going to play this clip of his world generation, and I want you to figure out what's fake about it. Did you catch that? Well, to help you out, I'm gonna slow down the footage and see if you can spot it this time. Well, as you can clearly see, the runner initially spawns in wearing a skin that is green, but literally just one frame later, his skin magically changes to orange. And this actually confirms that the speedrunner has made a cut in his recording, which is incredibly suspicious, and remember it for later. So, the speedrun begins, and everything seems pretty ordinary, as the runner collects some wood and crafts some tools, all the normal stuff. But let's see what happens when the runner locates a nearby village. What? Wait, okay, hold on a second. Why in the world is there a giant Mario statue in the middle of this village? Please don't tell me that's the reason why he cut his footage in the beginning of the run. Now, while this is definitely random and extremely hilarious, it's actually a huge distraction for the speedrunner to cheat. Because while it appears as though the runner is simply moving towards the structure to see inside it, take a very close look at this block, where you can actually see a grass pressure plate hidden in the floor. And first off, a grass pressure plate isn't even a real type of pressure plate, so I have no idea how the runner managed to find one. But secondly, as soon as the runner steps over this pressure plate, you can see a command in the chat which gives the runner a bunch of iron and a flint and steel, both crucial items for entering the nether. So I think it's pretty obvious this giant Mario statue was actually one big distraction for the runner to step over this pressure plate and get extra items. But what's even funnier is that when the runner notices these items in his inventory, he makes up one of the world's dumbest excuses.
By the way guys, if you see some extra items in my inventory, my game's just really laggy, so it gives me random items sometimes.
This guy isn't fooling anyone. So, after getting a bunch of extra iron and a flint and steel, the runner collects some beds, gathers some hay, and starts searching for a ruins portal. And to the runner's credit, it appears as though the ruin portal he finds is actually completely normal. But wait a second, because this speedrunner has cheated once again. Because I'm gonna replay this part of the footage, and you tell me what's fake about it. That's right, this speedrunner's skin has once again completely changed, meaning he made another cut in his recording. And I think it's pretty obvious that while the runner was off camera, he simply used a /locate command to find this ruined portal, meaning this part of the footage is completely fake. But my question is, why does this guy have so many different skins? So, the runner locates the ruined portal, where he starts off by going to loot the ruined portal chest. And I know you're expecting the loot in this chest to be completely fake, but that actually isn't the case, as all of the items he finds are actually completely normal. What the heck? The runner finds a jack-o'-lantern catapult? Okay, this isn't a real Minecraft item, is it? Well, of course, the runner wants to test out this item, and oh my gosh, this weapon is absolutely insane. Anyway, after messing around with this crazy weapon, the runner decides to focus by completing the nether portal and making his way into the nether. Now, a normal speedrunner would then make the choice of looking for a fortress or even looking for a bastion, both structures that are crucial in continuing the speedrun. But this guy doesn't even have to decide on which one he goes to first, because he literally finds a bastion that spawns inside the middle of a fortress. What? Now, it is technically possible for a bastion and fortress to spawn close to each other if they generate close to the separation border. But a bastion literally being inside a fortress is something that I think is simply impossible. And how the runner managed to pull this off, I unfortunately have zero idea. Well, the runner makes his way towards this insane generation where he decides he first wants to enter the bastion. But right away, this speedrunner is up to some very suspicious activity, because after he throws only 4 single pieces of gold, he somehow collects 16 ender pearls. Now, I guess you could argue this is possible, as each gold ingot you throw has the potential to collect 4 pearls, and because the runner threw 4 pieces of gold, it is possible to collect 16 of them. But the odds of this happening are so incredibly low that after I asked ChatGPT, has less than a 0.0000006% chance of happening. Now, I was about to let this slide and just assume this runner was the luckiest man in our galaxy until just a couple of seconds later, where he actually reveals the way that he cheated. Because if you look into the top left corner of the screen at this very frame, you can see that the runner is playing Minecraft with Forge installed, which, if you weren't already aware, is a very popular mod loader for Minecraft. So it's very likely that the reason the runner was able to get incredibly lucky trades from these piglins is because he's actually using a Minecraft mod which changes their drop rates. And because playing with mods that alter the game are clearly banned, this part of the speedrun is incredibly fake. Well, after collecting 16 pearls, a normal runner would then start searching for a fortress. But if you already forgot, this speedrunner found a world where the fortress is literally inside the bastion, so he doesn't have to waste any time searching for one and is already in the fortress. But as soon as the runner starts running around it, there's already something incredibly suspicious, because I want you to take a closer look at the loot in this fortress chest. Now, all of the items in this chest may look fairly normal at a first glance, but take a closer look at this redstone torch. And while it may seem very unimportant, it's actually impossible for this to spawn naturally in a fortress chest. So while this isn't necessarily suspicious now, remember this very redstone torch for later in the run. Well, after the runner loots one more chest and quickly drinks a potion of fire resistance, he starts his search for a blaze spawner room. But that's until... what? The runner finds 5 blaze spawners literally lined up in a row. And while there is technically no limit to the amount of spawners that can generate in a fortress, there is absolutely no way that 5 blaze spawners spawned perfectly in a straight line. So the only explanation is that the runner built this himself off camera. Well, with 5 different blaze spawners, there is a ton of blazes that the speedrunner is ready to kill. And in only about 45 seconds, he's actually able to collect 7 rods, the exact amount a runner would need to continue the speedrun. But here's the problem. When the runner opens his inventory, he realizes that he forgot to collect obsidian in the bastion, meaning he now has no way to travel back to the overworld and continue with the speedrun. Well, this speedrunner doesn't seem to be too worried about it, because as he is casually running throughout the nether, he finds a very strange sign on the wall, which literally only has one single word: magma. Well, I'm not entirely sure what that means, but the runner seems to know what it is and starts running in a very specific direction until they come across this very specific wall, which by the looks of it has a magma block that is very out of place. Now, while this block is very suspicious, how could it possibly help with the speedrun? Well, do you remember back earlier in the run when the speedrunner found a redstone torch in the fortress chest? Well, the runner grabs the torch, and when he goes to place it on this magma block, oh my gosh, a secret door opens up which reveals a room with a fully built nether portal. And while this is very obviously fake, credit to the runner for however they pulled this off. So, the runner lights the secret room ruins portal, where he finally spawns back into the overworld, where he quickly crafts Eyes of Ender, and you're probably expecting him to use triangulation to locate the strongholds. But instead of throwing his Eyes of Ender right away, he instead decides to place down a crafting table, where he inserts an Eye of Ender and an Ender Pearl into the table, which creates the Stronghold Eye? Was this a part of the new update? Well, after somehow crafting this crazy looking Eye of Ender, when the runner decides to throw it, oh my gosh, he is teleported directly into the strongholds. And while I don't know if this Stronghold Eye is a real item, it's for sure insanely overpowered. Well, after somehow teleporting into the strongholds, the speedrunner wastes no time searching for the end portal room. But somehow, this stronghold doesn't have one, not two, but 3 end portal rooms. Is that even possible? The max amount of end portal rooms that could spawn in a stronghold is only 1. I'm so confused. Well, the runner decides to use the end portal with the most eyes already in place, which of course means he now has the perfect amount he needs to light the portal, where he places his eyes, lights it, and finally jumps into the end, where to my surprise, I guess things seem fairly standard, with the runner still being in survival mode, and he spawns in without any crazy items in his inventory. But unfortunately, those two things are the last normal parts of the speedrun, because he starts explaining in chat that he has somehow acquired god strength, and that killing the ender dragon will be super easy. What god strength is this guy yapping about? Well, I guess the runner wants to show off this strength, so he pulls out his fist and makes his way towards the dragon. Alright, this fist is going to do no damage. What? This speedrunner just took half of the dragon's health with one single swing. And just one punch later, the runner actually manages to kill the ender dragon. And honestly, this speedrunner must actually have god strength, because I have no idea how he just pulled that off. This next speedrun begins and what? Wait a second, is that a llama from Fortnite? Okay, first off, llamas can only spawn naturally in a savanna biome when the runner is clearly in a plains biome. But secondly, how in the world did the runner spawn in directly next to a llama that's straight out of Fortnite? Was there a new collaboration that I missed? Either way, before the runner makes his way towards the llama, I guess the rest of his spawn is pretty normal, as the runner spawns in survival mode without any strange items in his inventory, and his world generation screen also looked completely legit. But when the runner goes to kill this llama, oh my gosh, it drops some insanely overpowered items for the speedrunner. And apart from a potion of fire resistance, flint and steel, and even a god apple, all very helpful items for the speedrun, this llama also drops a single redstone torch. And while that may seem pretty unimportant, remember it for later. So, after demolishing the llama, the speedrun continues with the runner collecting some wood, crafting a couple of stone tools, and making his way towards the nearby village. But hold on a second there, am I the only one who caught that? I'll replay the clip, and tell me if you notice what's incredibly fake about this part of the run. You are correct. Right behind this very village house, you can literally see another player in the speedrun. And not only does this mean that the runner is on a multiplayer server, something that's banned from a solo speedrun, but is he the one who managed to spawn in this Fortnite llama? Well, while it may look like this player is minding his own business, he's actually about to help the speedrunner cheat. Because after the runner kills the iron golem, he realizes he only has 2 iron ingots in his inventory, which means he is 1 iron ingot short of being able to craft a bucket, which is the only way he can collect water and build another portal. Well, while the runner is casually gathering some hay, take a closer look into the distance, where you can literally see this other player building an entire blacksmith for his friend. And I think it's pretty obvious the reason he's building a brand new blacksmith is because blacksmith's chests are known to spawn with iron in them, and with the runner not not having a lot of iron, his friend built him a blacksmith so he could collect extra and craft a bucket. But unfortunately, I caught this guy in 4K. So, the runner makes his way towards the man-made blacksmith, where our suspicion is confirmed, and he gets the last iron ingot he needs to craft a bucket. And after collecting a couple more beds, the runner then makes his way towards a lava pool, where he of course has the perfect amount of iron to craft a bucket and starts to create the nether portal. But am I the only one who caught that? While the runner is casually creating obsidian and building out the shape of the portal, he clearly falls into lava for just a brief second. However, despite the potion of fire resistance still being in his inventory, confirming that he hasn't used it, he somehow doesn't take a single tick of damage. How is that possible? Well, let's rewind the footage to about 15 seconds ago, when the speedrunner decided to put his logo in the bottom left corner of the screen. While it may look like this guy is just trying to advertise his channel, he's actually using this logo as a way to cheat. Because if you go back frame by frame, are you serious? There is one frame where the runner forgot to add in his logo, revealing it was covering a fire resistance effect command the entire time. And not only was this effect clearly given to the speedrunner by his friend, but secondly, how did the runner manage to hide the effect box in the top right corner of the screen? Either way, after avoiding taking a single lick of damage despite falling straight into lava, the runner quickly finishes building the portal and heads into the nether. And immediately after he spawns in, take a very close look into the right corner of the screen, where we can see the runner's friend literally spinning in a circle. Now, I know you're probably wondering why in the world this guy is acting so crazy, but believe it or not, he's actually about to help the speedrunner cheat. Because in Minecraft speedrunning, there's a very popular technique where a player opens his F3 menu and takes a look at the E value, which is the value that shows how many entities are located in that direction. And because bastions have a lot of entities, such as piglins and hoglins, any direction that has a high E value is likely to contain a bastion. So, while you may have thought this player was literally going crazy, the reason he's spinning is actually because he's looking for the direction that contains the most entities. And this guy must have been successful, because just a few seconds later he types in chat telling the runner the exact direction and coordinates he needs to follow to locate a bastion. So just 30 seconds later, after following those exact directions, it's no surprise that the speedrunner is greeted with a bastion. This cheating is just straight hilarious. So, the runner enters the bastion, and right off the bat, I think I caught these players cheating once again. Because while the runner is casually mining some gold blocks, take a very close look into the bottom corner of the screen, where we can see his friend place down a pressure plate on this exact block. Remember this for later. So, the runner collects a few more gold blocks and turns them into ingots, where he quickly locates a group of nearby piglins to trade with. And to his credit, the first few trades with these piglins are 100% standard, as the runner receives completely normal items. But that's until... what? The runner opens his inventory and realizes he has somehow collected 64 ender pearls. And this is incredibly rare, considering the fact that he just started trading with these piglins. Well, let's rewind the footage to about 15 seconds earlier and see what really happened. I'll play the clip. As you can very clearly see, this stack of pearls that the runner got didn't actually come from the piglins, but instead came from somewhere in the sky. And do you remember how I pointed out the runner's friend placing a pressure plate on the floor? Well, right before these pearls drop from the sky, you can hear the sound of this pressure plate going off, meaning the runner has in fact stepped on it. So as you've probably gathered by now, this pressure plate placed by his friend must have triggered some sort of redstone contraption, which dropped the pearls from the sky, all to give the speedrunner an advantage. This cheating is terrible. So, with a full stack of ender pearls in his inventory, the runner quickly leaves the bastion and immediately starts searching for a fortress. And while his gameplay may look 100% normal and standard, his audio is a completely different story.
Silas, I basically found a website where you add your Minecraft seed and it gives you coordinates to a fortress.
Are you serious? This speedrunner's friend literally just admitted to using a fortress locator website to find the exact coordinates of the fortress. And just a few seconds later, we clearly see his friend typing in chat, giving the runner the exact 3 numbers he needs to locate the fortress. There's no way they are this bad at hiding their cheating. So, the runner makes his way to the fortress, where I guess if I have to give him credit, he gets the achievement for entering it. And the runner pretty quickly locates a blaze spawner room, where he starts to fight blazes and collects blaze rods. But all of a sudden, what? Okay, there is no way this guy thought we'd actually believe this was a real ghast. They aren't even close to being the same size. It's so obvious that it's literally just a skin. Well, this quote-unquote ghast is actually about to do something insane, because he throws one of the biggest swords I've ever seen at the runner. And oh my gosh, the ghast has given him a weapon that is literally called the super cool, epic, awesome, wonderful master sword. What kind of name is that? Well, while the name of the sword is absolutely hilarious, the weapon itself is the exact opposite, because when the runner goes to use it, oh my gosh, it somehow has the ability to shoot wither skulls. And I feel bad for these blazes because they start to get absolutely destroyed. Alright, was this a weapon added in the new Minecraft update? Well, after destroying every single blaze in sight with this weapon, the runner eventually collects 7 blaze rods, the exact amount a normal speedrunner would usually collect. But when the runner opens his inventory, he's made a giant mistake. This speedrunner has forgot to collect enough obsidian blocks from the bastion, as he only has 3 in his inventory, which is obviously not enough to build another portal, meaning he has no way to enter the overworlds. But do you remember at the very beginning of the speedrun when the runner got this singular redstone torch from the Fortnite llama? Well, he starts running in a very specific direction in the nether, and after about 30 seconds of running, he quickly pulls out that very redstone torch and moves in a very precise position. But that's when, what? The runner is dropped from a trapdoor and goes from the nether directly into the overworld. And I'll replay the footage. There are no cuts anywhere. This speedrunner just managed to fall between dimensions in Minecraft. And I think it's pretty obvious this redstone torch set off some sort of redstone contraption that must have been built by the speedrunner's friend. But even with redstone, how do you manage to just fall between dimensions? Well, the runner is somehow back in the overworld, where he immediately turns his blaze rods into blaze powder and crafts Eyes of Ender. But he isn't about to use the process of triangulation like you might think. Because do you remember when the runner found the Fortnite llama at the beginning of the speedrun? Well, the speedrunner then comes across, what? Is that the Fortnite battle bus? Alright, seriously, was there a new update that I haven't seen? Well, the runner quickly builds up and makes his way inside the Fortnite battle bus. And when he looks out the window, it actually appears as though the bus is moving. And after about 15 seconds in the bus, when the runner goes to exit, oh my gosh. This battle bus did actually move, as the runner is now in an entirely different biome. But not only that, but after the speedrunner jumps down into a pool of water, he starts digging down in the exact spot the bus has stopped moving. And just 25 seconds later, he drops directly into the stronghold. So not only did a Fortnite battle bus just lead the runner right to a stronghold, but how in the world did it manage to move? And how did it even manage to spawn in vanilla Minecraft? I am so confused. So, the runner drops directly into the stronghold, where he quickly loots one of the chests and makes his way to the end portal room. And things have finally appeared to settle down, as the runner locates the portal and lights it without an ounce of suspicious activity. And on top of that, his spawn into the end is completely normal too, with the runner still being in survival mode and without any strange potion effects in the top right corner of this screen. But when the runner breaks out and looks at the surface. What in the world? What has happened to the end? The surface is quite literally built out of grass, and instead of finding obsidian pillars, the runner finds these massive trees. Alright, has the end somehow turned into Fortnite as well? But this is the best part, because while we can clearly see the dragon still has a health bar at the top of the screen, when the runner makes his way towards the surface, it's obvious he can't find it anywhere. But don't worry, because instead of finding an ender dragon, the runner instead finds another llama just like he did at the start of the speedrun. And I wish I knew how, but when the runner kills a llama this time, the gateway portal somehow lights and he completes the speedrun. This next speedrun begins, and right off the bat, there is already something fake about it, but it isn't something incredibly obvious, as everything looks fairly normal on the surface, as we can clearly see the runner spawned in facing straight, and he's also in survival mode. But let's actually go back to before the runner generated his world, and when he was adjusting his brightness, because while the runner is adjusting this setting, take a very close look at his GUI scale, which is a number that determines how big or small your hotbar appears. And as we can clearly see, he has it set to 5. However, when the runner spawns into the game, we can clearly see his GUI is much smaller than level 5 and is likely at level 3. And this actually means that the footage of him loading into the world and the footage of him spawning in are actually two completely different pieces of footage. And the runner has actually edited his world generation, making it very likely that he's using a set C. Either way, ignoring the incredibly suspicious spawn, the speedrun begins with the runner mining some wood, crafting a couple of tools, and making his way to a nearby shipwreck. And while this shipwreck may look completely normal to the average Minecraft player, there is one thing about this shipwreck itself that is incredibly odd. Because in Minecraft, a shipwreck will always spawn with only 2 different types of wood. However, when it comes to this shipwreck, we can actually clearly see there are 3 different types of wood, which actually leads me to believe that this shipwreck didn't generate naturally, but was instead built by the runner off camera. And this is further proven when the runner finds 4 chests inside the shipwreck, when the maximum amount of chests that can spawn naturally is only 3. Now, these 2 details essentially prove that this shipwreck is completely fake and was custom built by the speedrunner himself. But if you were still not sure about it, there is one more extremely hidden detail which guarantees this isn't real. Because if you replay the footage of the runner locating this structure, notice how he followed these dirt blocks all the way to the shipwreck. Clearly a sign that the runner placed them himself off camera, reminding him the exact direction the shipwreck was located. And the cherry on top is when the runner finally goes to loot his very first shipwreck chest, he finds an insane amount of obsidian, an item that can't even spawn naturally in this location. And I think it's pretty obvious that the reason the runner edited his world generation was so he could build this shipwreck for himself off camera. Well, after looting the rest of this entirely fake Minecraft shipwreck, you'd probably expect the runner to use his obsidian to quickly build a nether portal. But when the speedrunner opens his inventory, notice how he doesn't have a single flint and steel or fire charge, meaning even if he did build the portal, he would have no way to light it and can't enter the nether. But despite this, the runner insists on building his nether portal. But when he goes to place the final block, what? This portal somehow lights on its very own after being completed. And because the runner didn't use flint and steel, didn't use a fire charge, and didn't even use a method involving lighting wood on fire, I have absolutely no idea how he pulled this off. So, the runner enters the self-lighting nether portal and quickly spawns into the nether. And with his spawn being completely legit, the runner starts his search for a bastion. But after nearly 7 minutes of searching, the runner simply can't seem to find a bastion anywhere in the nether. And this is incredibly unlucky, as bastions spawn every 200 to 400 blocks, meaning the runner should have found one by now. Well, the runner runner starts typing in chat, explaining that he wants to try out a new hack that he found on TikTok, where the runner types in the sentence, "Roses are red, violets are blue, Bastion please spawn, and love you I do." Okay, I can guarantee this poem will do absolutely nothing. What? A Bastion literally spawns out of thin air. And I'll replay this clip. There is very clearly not a single cut anywhere, and this poem has indeed just magically spawned in a Bastion. I need a link to whatever TikTok explained this Minecraft hack. So, the runner somehow summons a Bastion, where he begins to do the usual. Mine gold blocks, turn them into ingots, and search for some piglins to trade with. But unfortunately, the runner actually can't seem to find a single piglin anywhere in the Bastion. And this is quite literally impossible, as piglins will always spawn in a Bastion no matter the circumstance. Well, after just a bit more searching, we come across a possible explanation for the lack of piglins. Because the runner finds a button on the wall called the piglin button? Alright, I don't even have to explain why this is fake, right? Well, I think it's pretty obvious that this button only serves one purpose, and that is to spawn in a piglin every single time the button is pressed. Okay, this feature is absolutely insane. So, after spamming the button for 30 seconds straight, the runner has an army of piglins ready to trade with. And while he does get lucky with some pretty good trades, including 12 ender pearls and 10 pieces of obsidian, that isn't actually what's fake about this part of the run. Because if you look closely, you'll actually notice that the runner has obtained 10 emeralds in his inventory, which is an item that is actually impossible to receive from piglin trades. So, while these emeralds may seem both useless and unimportant now, remember them because they will be extremely important later in the run. So, the runner somehow collects emeralds, and along with ender pearls and obsidian, he makes his way out of the Bastion. But as he is breaking out, oh my gosh, what type of cursed looking portal even is this? I'm almost positive this wasn't a part of the new Minecraft update. Well, the runner makes his way towards this insane looking portal, where he of course sees a sign right next to it, which claims that this portal is actually called the Fortress Portal. Well, being curious, I think it's obvious the runner wants to enter this strange looking portal. And when he finally spawns in, you gotta be kidding me, he somehow spawns directly into a fortress. And while I'm nearly positive this quote-unquote fortress portal is simply some sort of Minecraft mod, I gotta give the runner credit because it was pretty cool. So, the runner enters the fortress, where after collecting loot from this chest, the runner starts looking for a blaze spawner room. But you gotta be kidding me. Instead of finding a real monster spawner like in a normal Minecraft speedrun, this guy literally finds another player who is wearing a spawner's skin. And you can literally see him pull out a blaze spawner egg, pretending like he's an actual spawner. And I'm sorry, I know this part of the run is incredibly fake, but it's so hilarious that I think we just have to let it slide. So, after locating a quote-unquote blaze spawner, the runner splashes on some fire resistance when blazes start to spawn. And the runner actually gets some pretty decent luck, collecting 7 blaze rods pretty quickly. And after collecting these rods, the most obvious next step would be to build another portal and head back towards the overworld. But I think it's pretty clear that this guy has a slightly different plan, because he starts running in a very specific direction until he comes across a roller coaster? Alright, you gotta be kidding me. Well, the runner locates a roller coaster, and it's pretty obvious he can't resist taking a ride on it. And while this does look like a lot of fun, this speedrunner is wasting a ton of valuable time. Well, that's until, at this part of the roller coaster, what? The runner literally falls between dimensions and drops straight into the overworld. I have 0 words. So, the runner somehow makes his way into the overworld, but he makes a huge mistake. Because even though he locates the exact position of the stronghold without any suspicious activity, let's take a closer look at his inventory, where you can clearly see the runner only has 8 eyes of ender after wasting most of them to locate the position of the strongholds. And because the end portal requires 12 eyes to be completed, how in the world is the runner supposed to continue with the speedrun? Well, the runner digs down and enters the strongholds, where he seems to be going in a very specific path. And that's when He finds a vending machine? Okay, was a vending machine an item in the new Minecraft update? Well, the runner makes his way towards the vending machine, but hold on a second. Do you remember earlier in the run when the runners somehow collected emeralds from these piglins? Well, of course, when the runner opens the vending machine, take a look at the currency he needs to purchase items. And on top of that, one of the items in the vending machine is of course an Eye of Ender, the exact item the runner needs to continue with the speedrun. And I'm not gonna lie, there is no way a vending machine is a real Minecraft item. So, the runner uses the emeralds he somehow got from the piglins to purchase the extra Eyes of Ender that he needs, where he makes his way to the end portal room and easily completes it. And despite finding a vending machine just a couple of seconds ago, his spawn into the end doesn't feature any strange activity, with the runner still being in survival mode and the dragon still being alive with a full bar of health. But as soon as the runner makes his way to the surface, what? A second Ender Dragon health bar suddenly appears at the top of the screen, and he literally finds 2 different Ender Dragons in the end. Is that even something that's possible in vanilla Minecraft? Well, I think this dimension, quite literally having 2 dragons, might simply be too much pressure for the runner, because while he is trying to kill one of them, he gets absolutely destroyed, and the speedrun just cuts off there. This next speedrun begins, and unfortunately, there's already something fake about it. And no, it doesn't have anything to do with his inventory, as we can clearly see he's in survival. And it's not even his world generation, as we can also see the runner is facing straight. But wait a second, are we sure it's not his world generation? Because when the runner opens his F3 menu, I want you to tell me if you notice what's fake about it. Well, if you look into the left side of this menu, we can clearly see the runner is facing the direction of east. The problem is, in a real Minecraft speedrun, you will always spawn in facing south. And this actually proves there was a cut in the runner's recording, and this world generation is completely fake, which likely means the runner is playing on a set seed. Either way, besides the very suspicious spawn, everything else does seem pretty normal, as the runner crafts a few stone tools and collects some food for later in the run. But things get even more suspicious when the runner enters this nearby village, because this village somehow contains not 1, not 2, but 3 blacksmiths. Now, this technically isn't impossible, as the odds of finding 3 blacksmiths in one single Plains village is between 5 and 10%. However, there is one very obvious detail which actually proves that it's fake. Because if you look closely at blacksmiths number 2 and 3, do you notice it? Instead of being built out of cobblestone like in a real blacksmith, they are instead built with smooth stone. And this pretty clearly reveals that these blacksmiths did not spawn naturally, but instead were built by the runner off camera. And the runner accidentally used smooth stone instead of cobblestone, revealing he cheated. Either way, the runner makes his way into each one of the blacksmiths, where the loot in each chest is actually 100% legit. And after collecting some beds and gathering some hay, the runner begins his search for a ruins portal. But on his way, the runner comes across, what? Is that an emerald desert pyramid? I'm pretty sure this wasn't part of the new update. Well, the runner enters inside the emerald pyramid, but things only get crazier. Because instead of finding 4 chests like in a real desert pyramid, the runner instead drops down into a fully built ruined portal. And while this is clearly fake, I have no idea how this is even possible. Well, the runner drops down, and despite this pyramid being insanely overpowered, there is one massive problem. Because when the runner goes to check his inventory, he realizes that he doesn't have a single flint and steel, meaning he actually has no way of lighting the portal. Well, that's until the runner decides to loot this ruined portal chest, where inside he finds a nether portal block, which he grabs and starts placing in the portal himself. And just to be clear, it is quite literally impossible to obtain a nether portal block in Minecraft, so I have no idea how he just found some in a ruined portal chest. This speedrun is just straight cursed. So, after manually filling in the ruined portal himself, the runner quickly makes his way into the nether. Now, if you weren't paying extremely close attention, this spawn may seem completely legit, as the runner is still in survival survival mode, and he hasn't gained any weird potion effects in the top right corner. But I'm going to replay his spawn, and I want you to see if you can catch what is fake this time. Did you see that? We can clearly see the runner's FOV completely change right after he spawns into the nether. And because it's actually impossible to adjust your FOV while spawning into a new dimension, the only explanation is that the runner made a cut in his recording. So when the runner finds a nether fortress just 7 seconds after he spawns in, it's pretty obvious that the speedrunner cut his recording, built an entirely new nether portal, and pretended to spawn there the entire time. So the runner enters the fortress, and after looting a chest and fixing his FOV, he starts looking for a blaze spawner room to fight blazes and collect blaze rods. But hold on a second, since when did the runner collect a fire resistance potion? Just 5 seconds ago when he opened his inventory, we clearly saw he didn't have a single one anywhere. Well, let's replay this part of the footage and let me know if you can catch what's fake about it. Did you see it? If you pay close attention to the stone pickaxe in the runner's first inventory slot, you can see that it suddenly switches places with this apple and goes to the 8th slot. And just a couple of seconds later, when the runner now opens his inventory, he suddenly has a potion of fire resistance. So if you couldn't tell, this pickaxe magically moving places proves the runner made a cut in his recording where he went off camera, got the fire resistance potion, and tried to pretend like nothing ever happened. So, with a fire resistance potion in effect, the runner can pretty easily kill blazes without worrying about taking damage. But that's until... what? This might be the scariest looking blaze that I've ever seen. Why is it literally massive? So of course, when the runner tries to kill this blaze, he gets absolutely destroyed. And after getting him buried alive, the runner of course comes up with the world's funniest excuse, claiming that the reason he died was actually because his mouse glitched. And after that terrible excuse, with quite possibly the world's most obvious cut, the runner is suddenly back in the nether with all of the items in his inventory. This is just hilarious. So, the runner quickly locates a new fortress without any giant blazes, where he actually collects 7 blaze rods without any suspicious activity, where he immediately starts searching for a bastion, just like a normal Minecraft speedrunner would. And to his credit, he actually locates one pretty quickly, but there's one big problem, because this bastion is located on the opposite side of a huge lava pool. And without enough blocks in his inventory to build to it, how is the runner supposed to enter the bastion? Well, that's when the runner turns around and finds a random lever on the floor, which of course, after clicking it, reveals a chest in the ground. Now I know you're probably expecting this chest to have a bunch of overpowered items like we've seen in other speedruns, but the runner actually just finds 16 snowballs in this chest. Very weird. Well, the runner grabs the snowballs, where he decides to throw one at the bastion. Alright, what's the point? How is that gonna help in the speedrun? What? The snowball literally teleports the runner where he block clutches right into the bastion. I am so shocked right now, I can't even comprehend how that's possible. So, the runner somehow teleports to the bastion, where things thankfully cool off and become a little more normal, because he mines gold blocks, crafts some ingots, and starts to trade with piglins completely normally for a change. But do you remember when the runner found a giant blaze in the fortress? Well, he's now face to face with a giant piglin. And to nobody's surprise, with this piglin being incredibly giant, he of course gives the runner all the items that he needs. Something must be glitched in this world's game files. So, after collecting all the items he needs from a bunch of normal piglins and one giant piglin, the runner quickly builds another portal and spawns back into the overworld. Now, in a real Minecraft speedrun, the runner would immediately craft Eyes of Ender and start throwing them in the air, using a popular process of triangulation to locate the strongholds. But this speedrunner seems to have a slightly different idea up their sleeve, because they start typing in chat explaining that the batteries in their controller died and they need to turn off their recording to go and change them. But hold on a second, this might be the funniest excuse I've ever heard, because throughout the run we can clearly see he's been using mouse and keyboard, meaning this excuse to change his batteries was just a way for the runner to turn off his recording. And if it couldn't get any funnier, we can actually hear the runner typing on his keyboard while he's supposed to be finding batteries. I think it's pretty obvious the runner is trying to find a way to cheat off camera. Well, when the runner finally returns, he of course now suddenly knows the exact coordinates of the strongholds and drops directly into it just 30 seconds later. So here is what I think happened. While we heard the runner typing while he was supposed to be getting new batteries, he was actually searching up a strongholds finder website where he typed in the seed of his Minecraft world and found the exact coordinates of the strongholds. And now it's pretty obvious why the runner had to turn off his recording, because he was obviously trying to hide the fact he was cheating. So, the runner digs down, enters the strongholds, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but everything is normal. The runner loots a few chests, and finds the end portal room without a bit of suspicious activity. But oh gosh, things were going so well. Why does this have to be the goofiest looking end portal ever made? Alright, I'm dying laughing, but there's no way this actually lights. Oh, come on. I'm sorry. I don't have an explanation for how this is possible. So, the runner spawns into the end, and things are back to normal for a change, with the runner spawning on an obsidian platform and the ender dragon thankfully having full health. But oh my gosh, why in the world are the pillars made out of chests? And not only that, but the runner finds a random book laying on the ground, which explains that he will find the world's most overpowered weapons in one single chest. Is this guy about to go on a scavenger hunt in the end? Well, the runner closes the book, where he immediately starts looking through every single chest trying to find the overpowered item. At this point, it would probably be faster to just kill the dragon normally. Well, after literally 15 minutes of searching chests, the runner prepares to open this very chest. And inside, he does find an item, but it's not an enchanted netherite sword or even a power 5 bow like you might think, but instead a single wooden axe. And after literally wasting 15 minutes just to find an incredibly useless item, the runner doesn't even attempt to fight the dragon, but instead just jumps off the edge in rage. This next speedrun begins, and this runner has already cheated in a hilarious way. And don't worry, it actually has nothing to do with how the speedrun began, as the runner was simply collecting wood and crafting some tools. And it also doesn't have anything to do with this spawn location, as we saw he was facing perfectly straight. But let's take a much closer look at the runner's generation screen. If you've been paying attention, you may have noticed the language is slightly weird. Instead of single player, it says lonely voyage, and instead of create new world, it says shape a new sea. Well, if you weren't aware, this speedrunner actually has his game set to pirate language, which in itself is not fake at all and actually pretty funny. However, when the runner spawns in and looks at the name of this item, it's clearly in English, because in pirate language, this very same wooden pickaxe is instead called Pickaxe O Timber. So, because his generation screen and his gameplay are using two completely different languages, it actually confirms that this speedrunner made a cut when generating his world, and it's likely that he is in fact using a set seed and remember it for later. So, after the runner gathers the materials to craft a few tools, he begins searching for a village. But let's see what happens when the runner heads inside this specific village house, which is a cartographer house. So, the runner enters the house, where he doesn't seem to locate a chest until... What? the runner does somehow manage to open a chest. But wait a second, are my eyes playing tricks on me? There's quite literally not a single chest anywhere in this house. Is this possible? Well, the runner somehow opens an invisible chest where he finds mostly normal items, including iron ingots and apples. But the runner also finds this strange looking clock. And while it's possible this is simply a standard clock and the runner is using a texture pack, remember this item for later in the run. So, the runner finishes looting the invisible chest, where he turns his focus towards the village's iron golem. And don't worry, everything about this golem itself is actually completely normal. And to take it one step further, after the runner kills the golem, it also drops completely normal loot. But notice how the runner uses this very loot to craft iron tools instead of saving it for a different item. Remember this for later. So, the runner grabs the loot from the iron golem, where he collects some hay and starts searching for a ruined portal. And surprisingly, he locates a very standard looking ruined portal, which also does not contain a single fake item in the chest, where he quickly finishes creating the shape of the portal. However, do you remember how I mentioned the runner using his iron to craft iron tools? Well, when he checks his inventory, he realizes he doesn't have a flint and steel, and because he just wasted those iron ingots, he's not able to craft one either. Well, this is when the runner types in chat that he has a genius idea and will be back, where we see that he quickly quits his game. And 45 seconds later, are you kidding me? The speedrunner loads back in and is now wearing a skin that's literally flint and steel, where he starts yapping in the chat, explaining he now has the actual powers of this item. What does that even mean? Well, wearing this very specific skin, the runner quickly walks to the center of the portal, and just a couple of seconds later, the portal lights on its own? No, that's impossible. Did this skin actually manage to just light the portal? Look, all we played in slow motion. There were no cuts, no editing. This flint steel on the runner's skin actually just allowed the runner to light the portal. How is that possible? So, after somehow lighting the portal, the runner enters it and quickly makes his way into the nether, where a normal speedrunner would start searching for either a fortress or a bastion. But this guy instead finds... Wait, is that the house from SpongeBob? I didn't know SpongeBob was added into Minecraft. Unfortunately, the runner isn't able to meet SpongeBob himself when entering the building, but instead, he manages to find a sponge portal? Hold on a second. Let me try to build this portal myself. There's no way this is a real portal, right? Well, the runner of course wants to head directly into this portal, where he is teleported straight into a bastion. And what is the logic behind a sponge portal from SpongeBob teleporting a player into a nether structure? I'm so confused. So, the runner enters the bastion, and like many speedruns we've seen before, he collects some gold blocks, crafts some ingots, and begins to trade with a group of nearby piglins. But as the runner is trading, oh no, the runner literally starts falling and heading straight towards lava. Now pause. I know you're probably expecting this speedrunner to die, especially considering he doesn't have any fire resistance and he's heading straight towards lava. However, do you remember towards the beginning of the speedrun, when the runner found this strange looking clock in the village chest? Well, right before the runner is about to make contact with the lava, he clicks this very item, which reverses time and brings him all the way back up to the bastion. And if you pause the footage at this frame, you can literally see that this item is called Time Machine. And I'll replay that one more time, because not only was that extremely clutch, but I'm almost positive there is no Minecraft item that allows you to reverse time. So, after narrowly avoiding death, the runner continues to trade with piglins, this time being careful to stay away from the edge. And for the first time all speedrun, I can confidently say things are normal, as the runner collects 12 ender pearls, which is lucky but not impossible, and also 10 blocks of obsidian. Also pretty good, but nothing out of the ordinary. Unfortunately, things only get worse when the runner starts searching for a fortress, because on his way... What? Wait, is that Steve from the Minecraft movie? No way he was added to real Minecraft. Now, I know you're expecting Steve to give the runner some sort of overpowered item, but instead, he gives the runner a single piece of bread. You know what? Respect to Steve for not helping this speedrunner cheat. So, with an extra piece of bread, the runner continues to search for a fortress, where he eventually does manage to find one. But unfortunately, he has one problem, because when he checks his inventory, he quickly realizes he is very short on blocks. And because this fortress is extremely high in the air, how is the runner supposed to enter it and continue with the speedrun? Well, the runner starts explaining in chat that he found a glitch on TikTok that might help him out, where he starts building a 3x3 platform out of hay bales. Alright, the TikTok this guy saw must have been trolling him. Well, the runner finishes building his platform, where apparently the final step is placing a singular lever on this very block. But prepare yourself, because when the runner flips the lever, oh my gosh, the hay platform literally starts floating in the air and brings the runner directly to the top of the fortress. And it's obvious that this footage hasn't been edited or altered, and this platform is actually floating in mid-air, bringing the runner straight to the fortress. I need a link to whatever TikTok the runner saw, which explained how to do that. And to confirm I wasn't going crazy, I built this exact same structure in my own Minecraft world, and it's obvious it does not work. So how in the world did the runner just pull that off? So, the runner makes his way to the top of the fortress, where he does actually get the achievement for entering inside it. But let's take a very close look at the loot the runner finds in this fortress chest, because the runner finds gold, diamonds, a TNT sword. Wait, what? Last time I checked, there is no way to craft a TNT sword in Minecraft. Well, the runner grabs the item, where he quickly makes his way towards a blaze spawner room. And being that this is literally called a TNT sword, the runner can summon an explosion at a moment's notice, which destroys multiple blazes at once. Alright, I think this weapon might be too overpowered. So, after destroying an entire family of blazes with this incredibly overpowered weapon, it's no surprise that the runner quickly collects 7 blaze rods, where he then builds another portal and makes his way back towards the overworld. But unlike other speedrunners we've seen, this guy doesn't craft a single Eye of Ender and explains he can actually locate the stronghold simply by feeling it. Okay, whatever that means, I'll be impressed if this guy can pull it off. Well, he starts to run and appears to be going in a very strange direction, constantly switching the way he's facing and where he's running towards. But I guess this guy must have the quote-unquote feeling he described just a few seconds ago, because he starts digging down at this very block. Okay, there is no way this is possible. This is wasting a ton of valuable time. Oh gosh, the runner falls directly into the stronghold. But pause. I wish I could sit here and say this guy is some sort of genius and actually had the ability to feel the location of the stronghold. But let's rewind the footage and see what actually happened. Because if you look into the left corner of the screen at this frame, are you serious? You can literally see another player who is wearing an overworld skin. Wait, don't tell me he actually thought this skin would blend him in with the surroundings. And if you play the footage, it's very obvious the runner has been following this player all the way to the stronghold location. So not only does this mean the runner claiming to feel the location was completely fake, but it's actually hilarious they thought this skin would help them get away with it. So the runner digs down and enters the stronghold, where I guess I can give him a few points for actually getting the achievement. And after looting a stronghold chest, the runner makes his way to the end portal room. But what in the world? The runner literally finds 3 end portals, all extremely tiny and all with a different color. Wait, is it even possible to light a portal that small? Let alone for it to be any color besides the standard? Well, I wish the runner told us why, but I guess he's feeling the purple end portal. And while I'm shocked that this somehow worked, I'm surprised that the end looks 100% standard, as he spawns on an obsidian platform like any ordinary speedrun, and he also didn't gain any magic powers or items in his inventory. But yeah, I spoke too soon, because when the runner goes to the surface, no way. The dimension looks absolutely beautiful. This is one of the craziest looking ends that I've ever seen in Minecraft. Why does it literally look magical? Well, the speedrunner is clearly blown away by this incredible looking end that I think he forgot the Ender Dragon is still Minecraft's most dangerous mob. Because while the runner is enjoying the view, the dragon perches, launches the runner all the way into the air, and he gets absolutely destroyed. That was insane. This next speedrun begins, and while everything may look normal, there is one super tiny detail which actually proves the spawn is completely fake. And it's not the obvious, as the runner is clearly in survival mode. And it's also not the position of his spawn, as the runner is facing perfectly straight in parallel with the surrounding blocks. But to figure out what is fake about this spawn, we need to take a closer look at when the runner was generating his world. Because as he was adjusting the render distance of his game, take a closer look at this setting, his FPS, where you can clearly see he has it set to a max of 200 frames. However, when the runner spawns into Minecraft, you can quite clearly see his game is running at well over this limit. And this small detail actually confirms that the footage of him generating the world and the footage of his spawn are literally two different clips. And not only did the runner edit together his footage, I am extremely suspicious that this speedrunner is using a set seed. Well, apart from the very odd spawn, I guess the rest of the run looks pretty normal, as the runner is still in survival mode, and he doesn't spawn in with a single item anywhere in his inventory. But out of nowhere, the runner jumps into the water and starts mining this very specific block. Okay, what is this guy doing? Why is he mining this block? Oh my gosh. The speedrunner manages to locate a buried treasure under the exact block he mined. But hold on a second. How did the runner know a buried treasure was under this very block? Because the only way to locate one without a map is to use a process involving the Minecraft pie chart, something we clearly saw the runner did not use. So how is this possible? Well, this is the leaderboard on the actual speedrun.com website for 1.16 random seed. And if we take a closer look at rank number 1, the fastest Minecraft speedrun ever recorded, I want you to tell me if you notice what is suspicious about it. To start, both the speedrunner and this world record time spawn in the exact same location. And look, they both mined this block in the exact same place. And the chest contains the exact same loot. So as you have probably gathered by now, this speedrunner is literally playing on the same seed as the fastest run ever recorded. And not only does this confirm that the runner is playing on a set seed, something that is banned from any real speedrun attempt, but now it makes sense why the runner had to cut his footage in the beginning of the speedrun. So, the runner gathers all the loot from the treasure chest, where he mines some wood, crafts himself a few tools, and begins to search for a nearby village. And at a first glance, it may look like this speedrunner located the village without a bit of suspicious activity, as the village itself looks 100% normal. But let's rewind the footage, because this speedrunner has cheated once again. Because if you pause the footage at this very frame, do you notice that? If you look up into the sky, you can actually see the shape of an arrow pointing in a very specific direction. And not only is it clear that this arrow pointed the runner in the exact direction the village was located, but I think it's pretty obvious the runner built this himself to remind him which way to travel. And it's hilarious because I bet the runner thought this arrow looked like a cloud and we wouldn't notice. So, after following a very specific path pointed out by an arrow, the runner enters the village, collects some hay, and goes to loot this very chest. Now, I will be completely honest. The loot in this chest is 100% normal, as every single item here can spawn naturally. However, when the runner leaves the village after looting it, am I the only one who noticed that? The runner leaves this house and is now in a completely different type of village. Look, literally 20 seconds ago, the runner was clearly in a plains village, but now he is somehow in a savannah village. And of course, this savannah village conveniently has a ruined portal ready for the runner to use. So the only possible explanation is that the runner made a cut in his recording where he went off camera, found a completely different village which contained a ruined portal, and pretended he was in that village the entire time. So, after collecting a few more beds, the runner makes his way towards the ruined portal in the center of his brand new village. And let's not worry about the loot in the ruined portal chest, as it does appear to be be completely normal. But let's instead focus on the fact that this ruined portal has one piece of crying obsidian in it. And this is a big problem for the speedrunner, as a ruined portal cannot light if there is crying obsidian in the way. Well, this is when out of nowhere, a random Minecraft intro starts playing. Isn't an intro supposed to be at the start of a video? And hold on a second, this guy forgot to put his name in the intro. It's literally unfinished. Alright, this is actually hilarious. Well, after that random intro stops playing, the runner returns to the speedrun, where he lights the portal. Hold on a second. Where did the piece of crying obsidian go that we quite literally saw in the portal just a few seconds ago? Well, as you may have guessed by now, this hilarious Minecraft intro was actually a way for the runner to cheat yet again. Because while the intro was playing, this speedrunner was clearly off camera, removing the piece of crying obsidian and replacing it with normal obsidian. And while I did manage to catch him cheating, that intro was hilarious. So, the runner lights the portal and finally makes his way into the nether. And just a couple of seconds after the runner spawns in, he manages to locate a nether fortress. And while the fortress itself is actually pretty normal, this speedrunner cheated again. Because let's take a very close look at his inventory before the runner spawned into the nether. Got it? Well, the runner spawns in, and now take a closer look at his inventory. No, it's not actually any of the items in his inventory that is suspicious, but actually the specific slot he's selecting. Because before the runner spawned in, we clearly saw he was selecting the second slot. But after the runner spawned in, he's now magically selecting the 8th slot. And because it is impossible to change inventory slots when teleporting between dimensions, this reveals that the runner has made yet another cut in his recording, which is likely the reason he was able to locate a fortress so quickly after spawning in. So, the runner enters the fortress, where he loots a chest, drinks a potion of fire resistance, and starts to fight blazes in hopes of collecting blaze rods. But when the runner kills his very first blaze, what? Why did this blaze just drop the world's largest blaze rod? That thing is literally massive. But wait, it's not just the first blaze that does that, but every single blaze in this blaze spawner room drops giant blaze rods. And I guess with these blaze rods being massive, they give the runner 6 pieces of blaze powder per rod, which is literally 3 times the standard amount. That was insane. Well, after only collecting 3 blaze rods, the runner has more than enough powder to continue the run, where he begins his search for a bastion. However, do you remember at the very beginning of the speedrun when we found out this player was actually on a set seed? Well, the runner literally pulls up a website called Bastion Remnant Finder, where he copies the exact set seed he's playing on and locates every single bastion in the entire Minecraft world. And I guess he's given up trying to hide his cheating because he does all of this on camera. So, after blatantly cheating and locating the exact coordinates of the bastion, the runner quickly returns to his game, where he opens his F3 menu and runs in the exact direction the website said, where he actually finds a bastion at those coordinates and quickly makes his way inside it, where after collecting some gold blocks and turning them into ingots, he finds a group of nearby piglins and begins to trade with them. But this speedrunner is about to do something so incredibly sneaky. I'm going to play the footage and I want to see if you notice it. Did you catch that? Right before the runner is about to throw his gold at the piglins, the ingots in his inventory somehow jump from 27 to 54. And while this is super obviously fake, how in the world did the runner double his ingots? We could clearly see there wasn't a single cut in his recording. Well, after somehow doubling his ingots, the runner now has double the amount of trades he can get from the piglins. And while he does have a lot of gold to work with, what? The runner collects 16 ender pearls and 20 blocks of obsidian. And I don't even want to do the math on that, but getting this lucky with trades is nearly impossible. Well, maybe the runner didn't actually get lucky, but instead he cheated, because I'll play this footage in very slow motion and see if you can catch it. That's right. When the runner originally opens his inventory, you can clearly see he only has 4 ender pearls and 6 blocks of obsidian. But suddenly, 1 frame later, the runner now has 16 pearls and 20 blocks of obsidian. And not only that, but notice how the runner's background completely changes as well. And both of these factors clearly prove that the runner made a cut in his recording, meaning he didn't actually get extremely lucky from these trades, but instead, he cheated. So, with a bunch of fake items in his inventory, the runner quickly builds another portal and spawns back into the overworld. And after the runner crafts some Eyes of Ender, you're probably expecting him to use the process of triangulation like a real speedrunner would, which is a very popular technique to locate the position of the strongholds. But I don't think there is any way I can prepare you for what is about to happen, because as the runner is casually running through the overworld, what the heck am I looking at? Is that a pyramid made out of the face of Obama? Okay, I've officially seen it all in Minecraft speedruns. Well, the runner makes his way towards this insanely goofy Minecraft structure where he literally finds a door at the front. And to nobody's surprise, the middle of this Obama pyramid features a ladder with a path that goes straight down directly into the strongholds. And trust me, I know this is fake, but I can't even comprehend how in the world this just happened. So, the runner enters the strongholds, and thankfully things appear to be slightly more normal, with the runner looting a stronghold chest and beginning to search for the end portal room. But why is there a random ladder on the wall? Well, the runner is of course curious and decides to make his way up this giant ladder. And when he makes his way all the way to the surface, you gotta be kidding me. He literally finds the end portal room above ground and completely on its own. Can someone please explain how this is even possible? Well, the runner enters the above ground end portal room, lights a portal, and makes his way into the end. And yes, his spawn is 100% normal, but that's about the last real thing in this speedrun. Because when the runner makes his way to the surface, why? Just why? The runner finds the most wish.com looking ender dragon that I've ever seen in Minecraft. And while you may be thinking this is just a joke, when the runner quote-unquote attacks the dragon by breaking one of its blocks, he actually loses half of his health. And when the runner actually manages to kill the dragon by mining his head, the health bar at the top of the screen actually disappears, and the gateway portal suddenly lights on its own. And I am so extremely confused with this entire run, we're just gonna move on. This next speedrun begins, and come on, there's already something fake about it. Thankfully, it has nothing to do with this player's generation screen, as we could clearly see his game mode was set to survival. And it wasn't his world generation either, as that looked very standard too. But it actually has everything to do with this player's spawn location. Because when the runner opens his F3 menu, do you notice that? According to his menu, the runner has spawned in a plains biome. However, it's more than obvious that the runner is not in a plains biome, but instead in a savanna biome. Now, I guess it's possible that this is simply some sort of glitch, and the speedrunner is not cheating at all, but I am suspicious that the runner is somehow using a set seed. Either way, the speedrun begins with the runner doing the usual, collecting wood to build a crafting table, making a couple of stone tools, and starting to search for a nearby village. But on his way, what? The runner finds a bonus chest? Okay, first off, we clearly saw the runner had this option disabled in his generation screen, so how in the world did it manage to even spawn here? But secondly, bonus chests in Minecraft always generate at your spawn point, which actually confirms this area where the runner spawned in was not his real spawn point, which could have explained why the biome in the F3 menu was glitched. But finally, the worst part is that this bonus chest contains completely fake items. Because apart from apples and wood planks, the runner also finds flint and steel along with 3 blocks of obsidian. And not only is it impossible for these items to spawn in a bonus chest, but remember them for later in the run. So, the speedrun continues with the runner finally locating a village. And immediately, let me know if you're able to spot what's fake about it. That's right. This speedrunner finds a village house that is literally 2 different blacksmiths merged together. Look, this one structure has 2 pools of lava, 2 doors, and 2 different chests. Now, I guess it's technically possible for this to happen naturally, as more than one blacksmith can spawn in a village, and they can spawn this close if they spawn at overlapping borders. But after asking ChatGPT what it thought, the real odds of this happening is 1 in 10,000 villages, which basically means this structure is completely fake. So, after looting the double blacksmith, the speedrunner collects a few beds, gathers a bit of hay, and goes to kill this village's iron golem. Now, I will give this guy credit. Everything about this golem is actually 100% legitimate. And the golem also drops 2 ingots, which is completely standard and nothing out of the ordinary. But did you catch what is fake about this part of the run? I'll play the clip. Did you see that? While the runner is casually attacking this golem, the obsidian in his inventory randomly changed from 3 blocks to 4 blocks. And I don't know how that's possible, because we could clearly see not a single cut in the recording. So while it's obvious this golem was simply a distraction for the runner to cheat, I sadly have no idea how he pulled it off. So, after killing the golem, a normal speedrunner would then begin their search for a ruined portal. And I guess the runner at least has some skill, because that's exactly what he starts doing. But on his way, hold on, did you catch that? As the runner is making his way towards this ruined portal, you can actually see a redstone torch floating in the air. And while it's definitely suspicious, it's technically not helping the runner cheat just yet, so remember it for later. Well, the runner makes his way to the ruined portal, where he loots the ruined portal chest. But despite finding 3 blocks of obsidian in the bonus chest, and somehow getting an extra 1 while fighting the iron golem, the runner still can't light the portal due to this block of crying obsidian in the way. But that's until... what? This piece of crying obsidian is suddenly pushed out the way, which creates the space for the runner to light the portal. How is that possible? Alright, don't worry. I know that was insane, but I managed to figure out how they just cheated. To start, do you remember how we saw a floating redstone torch in the air just a few seconds ago? Well, notice how right before this insane maneuver happens, you can see this redstone torch moving in the background. And I think it's obvious at this point that this redstone torch is being held by an entirely different player, who is using an invisibility potion to hide his identity. But secondly, this redstone torch was actually used to move this crying obsidian out the way, because you'll hear a very obvious piston sound during the exact time this block is moved. So I think it's obvious that this player who is invisible and holding the redstone torch actually built some sort of redstone and piston contraption to move this piece of crying obsidian out the way, also that the runner could light the portal. And while I did manage to catch them cheating, that was still absolutely crazy. So, the runner lights the portal, enters it, and makes his way into the nether. And despite the countless amount of cheating in the overworld, he starts off his time in the nether without any weird activity. As he's still in survival mode, he hasn't magically gained a potion of fire resistance, and he immediately begins searching for a nether fortress. But you gotta be kidding me. The runner finds Minecraft's most overpowered nether fortress. Why are all of the blocks literally Minecraft's most overpowered pieces? But not only that, because the blazes in this overpowered fortress are lucky block blazes. Alright, hold on. I'm pretty sure a lucky block blaze is not a real type of Minecraft mob. Well, of course. With these being lucky block blazes, they don't just drop your ordinary blaze rods, but instead, they manage to drop rainbow blaze rods. And when the runner places just one single rainbow blaze rod in the table, he finds out it is worth 64 normal blaze rods. Yeah, it's safe to say this fortress was incredibly overpowered. So, after turning one rainbow rainbow blaze rod into a full stack of real blaze rods, the next order of business is for the runner to collect ender pearls, where a normal speedrunner would head towards a bastion to get them from piglin trades. But this speedrunner seems to have a slightly different plan, because he makes the strange decision of traveling all the way back to his nether portal and spawning back into the overworld. Very strange. Well, the runner spawns back in, where he seems to be traveling in a very specific direction. And that's when, what? The runner finds a nether biome in the overworld? Alright, hold on. I'm almost certain a nether biome is not even a real type of biome in Minecraft. But secondly, how in the world did this even manage to spawn here naturally? Well, the runner makes his way into the nether biome, where he finds some pretty standard stuff you'd spot in the nether. Pools of lava, nether fossils, and even some piglins who somehow aren't taking any sun damage. But that's not all, because the speedrunner then finds this. An incredibly strange looking portal that isn't anything like I've seen in vanilla Minecraft. Well, the runner is of course curious by this portal, where he decides he's going to light it. And not only does it light with a very strange color, but when he spawns in, you gotta be kidding me. This portal just somehow teleported the runner straight into a bastion. And this speedrunner's friend must have mentioned this portal being in the overworld, because that's the only way he could have known to leave the nether. But my question is this a new type of portal they just added into Minecraft? So, the runner somehow spawns into the bastion, where things seem to be slightly more normal, as the runner crafts an iron pickaxe, collects gold blocks to turn them into ingots, and starts searching for a group of piglins to trade with. And if you aren't paying extremely close attention, it may look like everything that's happening right now is 100% normal, as the runner is throwing his gold at the piglins and getting very standard loot. But do you notice that? Well, in Minecraft, there are two very different types of piglins. A normal piglin, which is the standard and most common type of piglin you're probably familiar with. But the other type of piglin is actually called a piglin brute, which is the type of piglin we see the runner trading with right now. Here's the problem. In Minecraft, it's actually impossible to make trades with piglin brutes, because they simply can't pick up any gold ingots. So how in the world the runner is actually managing to trade with them, I have zero idea. So, after somehow trading with piglin brutes, the runner actually gets some pretty decent luck, collecting 12 pearls fairly quickly, which is about how many a normal speedrunner would collect. But he doesn't get so lucky with the amount of obsidian he gets, because we can clearly see he only has 8, which is obviously not enough to build another portal. Well, I don't know if this guy is new to Minecraft, but he doesn't seem to care about the lack of obsidian, because he decides to leave the bastion. And okay, is this guy serious? There's no way he believes this portal will actually light. He's clearly missing 2 pieces at the bottom. Well, the runner insists on pulling out flint and steel. Huh? Wait, how in the world did this guy actually light the portal? I shouldn't have been making fun of him. That was absolutely insane. So, after somehow lighting an unfinished nether portal, the runner heads back to the overworld. And every single bit of the runner located in the stronghold appears to be 100% normal. He crafts his Eyes of Ender using the items he got from the nether. He throws them in the same way you would using triangulation. And when he drops into the stronghold, he does get the achievement for entering into it. However, there is one incredibly small detail which proves all of it is fake. Because I want you to take a look at the area where the runner started digging down, and you tell me if you notice what isn't real. Now, this is so incredibly hard to notice that I nearly missed it myself. But take a very close look at this specific tree, where if you look ever so slightly, you can see that these leaves are acacia leaves, while the rest are very clearly oak leaves. And so I think it's pretty obvious that the runner replaced the leaves on this specific tree, all to remind him that the stronghold was under that exact area. And you know what? I give him credit, because that was very hard to spot. So, the runner drops into the stronghold, where he quickly locates the end portal room and lights the the portal. And while his spawn into the end looks normal, hold on a second. Look at the Ender Dragon's health bar. How in the world is it already decreasing? The runner literally just spawned into the end, and it's obvious he's not doing any damage to it. And on top of that, when he goes to the surface, he somehow sees the dragon taking damage when nobody is attacking him. Now, do you remember near the very beginning of the speedrun when we realized there was another player in the world? Well, when the runner goes to the surface, let's take a close look at this obsidian pillar, where if you look towards the top, you can literally see another player trying to blend in with the pillar while wearing an obsidian skin. And he's also holding a bow in his hands, which confirms the reason this dragon was taking damage out of thin air was because this player was using his bow and shooting arrows at it. And with two different people attacking one single dragon, it's pretty obvious they take care of him pretty quickly. This next speedrun begins, and right away, there's something incredibly suspicious in the distance. Because if you look closely into the top corner of the screen, you'll actually notice a woodland mansion has spawned. Now, while it is incredibly rare to spawn this close to a woodland mansion, it's technically not impossible, as they do spawn every 10,000 blocks. However, let's take a closer look at where this mansion spawned in, because in Minecraft, woodland mansions can actually only spawn naturally in one specific biome, a dark forest biome. The problem is, it's pretty obvious the runner is in a plains biome, and this actually confirms that this woodland mansion didn't spawn naturally in this location. So not only is it incredibly likely that the runner somehow spawned it in himself, but it also means it's likely the runner is using a set seed. But to add on, when the runner opens his inventory, you can see that he somehow already has a stone axe. And not only does that prove the runner was on this world before he started recording, but remember this item for later. Well, the speedrun begins with the runner collecting some wood, crafting some tools, and of course, heading towards the mansion. And if you thought the spawn of this mansion was very suspicious, do you notice what else is weird about it? That's right, during his entire time of searching the mansion, he somehow doesn't find a single illager or any other mob, which is incredibly strange, considering woodland mansions will always spawn with mobs inside it. But let's cut the runner some slack, because every other aspect of this mansion is completely normal, and after visiting it, he then locates a nearby village without any signs of cheating. But I'm gonna play this part of the footage, and you tell me if you notice what's fake about it. Did you catch that? Well, it actually has nothing to do with the iron golem itself, as the runner fights it completely normally, and it also drops very standard loot. But it actually has to do with the stone axe the runner has in his inventory. Because while it may look normal at a first glance, when the runner hovers over it, what? This stone axe is called the structure spawner. Now, do you remember at the very beginning of the speedrun, when the runner somehow found a woodland mansion in a biome it can't spawn in, and that he had this very stone axe in his inventory before the run even started? Well, it's pretty obvious this axe does have the power to spawn any structure, which actually means the runner generated this woodland mansion on his own. This cheating is terrible. So, after killing the iron golem and collecting the loot, the runner grabs a few beds and gathers some hay. Now, you're probably expecting the runner to use this bread as a way to gain hunger throughout the speedrun, but instead, he rips out a crafting table and crafts the bread caliber? Oh no. Wow, that weapon is pretty strong for it being made out of bread. So, after demolishing everything in sight with the bread caliber, you're probably expecting the runner to start searching for a ruins portal. But he isn't quite done with this hilarious Minecraft weapon, because he starts typing in chat, reciting some sort of spell? Did he just ask this sword to summon an iron golem? Well, just a few seconds later, the runner swings his sword and what? An iron golem suddenly suddenly fades into the world right in front of the speedrunner. And look, all we play that footage. There are no cuts. This golem legitimately just spawned out of thin air. Okay, this might be the world's most overpowered Minecraft weapon. So, with another iron golem at his disposal, the runner quickly starts to attack it. And along with iron ingots and a poppy, the two things an iron golem normally drops, it also drops a single gold nugget. And while that may seem unimportant, it's actually impossible for an iron golem to drop this item. So make sure you remember it for later in the run. So, the runner loots one more chest before he finally makes the decision of locating a ruined portal. But as soon as he does, wait a second, what happened? It appears as though this ruined portal has literally fallen over on its side. Was there some strong wind in this Minecraft world? Well, the runner goes to loot the ruined portal chests, but unfortunately, he doesn't have enough to build a normal looking nether portal, so he decides to just finish off this sideways one. But do you remember how just a few minutes ago, the runner collected a single gold nugget from this iron golem? Well, he pulls it out and what? He somehow lights this sideways ruined portal, and the portal itself turns to gold. And all we play that. No cuts, no editing. This portal actually managed to light despite being on its side. But not only that, because when the runner jumps in, he's actually teleported into the nether. Okay, what in the world is messed up with this world's game files? So, the runner somehow spawns into the nether, where he immediately starts to look for a fortress. But when he finally locates it, what? Wait a second. This is clearly a nether fortress, but it looks exactly like a bastion. I mean, look, all the blocks are made out of materials you find in a bastion. And there's also a ton of gold blocks that resemble one too. And lastly, instead of finding blazes in this fortress, the runner instead finds piglins, which is exactly like a bastion. Somehow, this nether fortress has spawned with bastion features. Well, the runner makes his way into the bastion fortress, where I guess he doesn't have to worry about fighting blazes, and instead mines some gold blocks and starts trading with piglins. And after a couple of minutes of trading with the piglins, the runner does actually collect all the loot you'd expect from these trades, including obsidian, potions of fire resistance, and even some ender pearls. But to be more specific, he only collects a few ender pearls, because while a normal speedrunner would usually collect between 12 and 16, this speedrunner has only managed to collect 8. Interesting. Well, after trading with the piglins in the Bastion Fortress, the runner then begins a search for a normal fortress as a way to fight blazes and collect blaze rods. But on his way, the runner finds Mr. Blaze? Alright, hold on a second. Why in the world is there a Blaze who's wearing a tuxedo? This is hilarious. Well, the runner makes his way towards Mr. Blaze, where he quickly types in chat, saying hello to the speedrunner. And just a few seconds later, he gives the speedrunner a book. And when he opens it, he's given the exact coordinates he needs to locate the position of a fortress. And I gotta say, Mr. Blaze just helped out the speedrunner a ton. So, after the runner follows the exact coordinates from the book, he actually does manage to find a fortress. And unlike the Bastion Fortress we saw just a little while ago, this fortress is completely normal and contains blazes like we're used to. But what in tarnation? The runner finds one of the goofiest looking blazes that I've ever seen. First off, it's so insanely obvious this is not a real blaze and was clearly built by the runner. But secondly, how in the world did the runner even find gold fences? That's not even a real type of fence in Minecraft. I have so many questions. So, after killing a bunch of normal blazes and killing this blaze, the runner ends up collecting 7 blaze rods, which is very standard. And he then starts building a nether portal, preparing to head into the overworld. But, do you remember how I clearly pointed out that this speedrunner only collected 8 ender pearls? Which is far less than a normal speedrunner would collect? Well, when the runner spawns into the overworlds, he opens his inventory and now suddenly has 12 ender pearls. Wait, how is that possible? We clearly saw he was stuck at 8 the entire time in the nether. Well, right as the runner spawns into the overworlds, do you notice it? When he opens his F3 menu, you can clearly see his X coordinate is at over 9,000 blocks. And because your spawn in Minecraft is a few hundred blocks within 0, that means throughout this entire speedrun, this player has traveled nearly 9,000 blocks. And there's actually a very specific achievement once you travel this distance, which is called the Subspace Bubble achievement. Here's the problem. Despite the runner traveling this amount of blocks, when he spawns into the overworlds, he somehow doesn't get the achievement in the chat. However, he does get a bunch of extra XP, as we can see he is now at 9 levels. So, this actually proves the runner did get the achievement. However, because we didn't see it in the chat, it means he has actually cut it out of his recording. And after he cut his footage and was off camera, that was when he got the extra ender pearls that he needs. But I'm not going to lie, this speedrunner just almost got away with that cheat. So, with 12 ender pearls, the runner is able to craft 12 eyes of ender, where he quickly locates the position of the strongholds. But when he enters the strongholds, notice how he hasn't gotten the I Spy achievement, which actually means he's visited the strongholds before he started recording. So of course, when he goes to the end portal room and ends up having the exact number of eyes that he needs, it's obvious that while he was off camera earlier, he also went in the strongholds and make sure there was enough eyes in the portal so he could light it later. So the runner lights the portal, jumps in, and spawns into the end. And on the surface, things may look completely normal, as the runner is indeed still in survival mode, and he hasn't gained any strange overpowered weapons in his inventory. But is something wrong with the Ender Dragon? You can clearly see it's stuck in the air and it hasn't moved at all. Wait, is that even possible? Well, after noticing that this dragon isn't moving, it's pretty obvious the runner wants to build up to it so he could easily kill the dragon. But right before the runner is about to pull out his sword, the Ender Dragon suddenly starts moving again, where he heads straight into the speedrunner, which knocks him off his pillar and kills him to fall damage. And I don't know how, but this dragon just trolled the speedrunners so hard. This next speedrun begins with the runner immediately locating a Minecraft shipwreck. And while his world generation screen is completely normal, and the runner spawned in facing perfectly straight and parallel with the surrounding blocks, the odds of spawning in directly in front of a shipwreck are less than 1%, so it is something to look out for. Well, the speedrun begins with the runner collecting some wood from a nearby tree, making himself a couple of tools to use throughout the run, and of course, heading into the shipwreck. But did you catch that? As the runner makes his way inside of the shipwreck, turn your focus towards the left corner of the structure, where you can actually see a parrot which is sitting on the shipwreck. Now, it technically isn't impossible for a parrot to be in this location, as he likely spawned in the jungle biome right next to the runner and simply flew over. But when the runner goes to kill this parrot, what? Instead of dropping feathers like any normal parrot would, this parrot literally drops a flint and steel for the runner to use. And while I have absolutely no idea how that is even possible, remember this flint and steel for later in the run. So, the speedrun continues with the runner looting all 3 chests in the shipwreck, which actually contain completely standard loot. And the runner then quickly heads towards this nearby village. But hold on a second, let's rewind the footage to the very beginning of the speedrun, where you can clearly see the biome directly next to this shipwreck is a jungle biome, which explains how the runner found a parrot on the shipwreck. However, when the runner goes to leave the shipwreck and locates a village, he is suddenly right next to a plains biome. And not only that, but notice how the runner leaves the shipwreck above 2 completely different colors of water. So, these 2 details actually mean that these are entirely different shipwrecks in entirely different locations. And the runner cut his footage pretending like nothing happened, so he could be right next to a village and gain an advantage. So, the runner enters the nearby village, and after looting one of the village chests, he turns his focus towards this pile of hay, and the runner starts collecting some as a way to craft bread to use throughout the run. But something absolutely insane happens when the runner goes to mine his last piece of hay. I'll play the clip. Did you see that? Even though the runner clearly mines a block of hay, somehow a block of obsidian is dropped from it. And you can clearly see there are 0 cuts in the recording, so I have absolutely 0 clue how the runner just pulled that off. And remember this single piece of obsidian for later in the run. So, with a bunch of hay and somehow a block of obsidian, the runner collects a few more beds and begins to search for a ruins portal. But I'm going to play this clip of him running towards it, and you tell me if you notice what's fake about it. Now, it was incredibly sneaky, so I'll play it again in slow motion and see if you notice it this time. Did you see that? Somehow, while the speedrunner is casually running towards this portal, the chest switches from a standard chest to an ender chest. And what's mind-blowing about it is that there was clearly not a single cut in the recording, and this chest has literally magically changed. And of course, this magical chest contains 3 blocks of obsidian, and after the runner places them in the portal, he uses the piece of obsidian he somehow got from the hay and has the exact amount he needs to light the portal. I'm so confused. So, after somehow looting an ender chest, the runner lights the portal with the flint and steel he got from the parrot and quickly heads into the nether. And like any normal speedrunner would, this runner immediately starts searching for a fortress. But all of a sudden, wait, what? The runner starts eating his wooden axe? Okay, hold on a second. Did this guy quite literally just gain hunger from a wooden axe? Am I seeing things? And hold on, not only did the runner somehow eat a wooden axe, but he now suddenly has a potion of fire resistance in the top right corner of the screen. What in the world is glitched with this item's game files? Well, after eating a wooden axe and getting fire resistance, the runner finally locates and enters a fortress where things actually seem pretty good, as the runner is protected from all fire damage and is making quick work of the blazes. But after the runner collects 7 blaze rods, he decides to continue fighting in the fortress. And this is incredibly strange, as any normal runner would immediately leave the fortress after collecting this amount of blaze rods. But this guy wastes a ton of time and continues to fight until he has 14 of them. And while this may seem like a complete waste of time, remember this extra amount of blaze rods for later in the run. So, after collecting a ton of rods, the runner finally decides to leave the fortress, where he begins to search for a bastion. But on his way, the runner finds a skeleton horse? Okay, wait a second. It's not even possible for a skeleton horse to spawn naturally in the nether, as they can only spawn if a normal horse is struck by lightning in the overworld. But secondly, when the runner hops on this skeleton horse, it starts going in a very specific direction, where it drops off the runner directly in front of a bastion. And I have so many questions, we're just gonna move on. So, the runner somehow locates a bastion, where he enters it and does the standard. Collect some gold, turn that gold into ingots, and locate a group of nearby piglins. But mixed into this massive group of piglins is what? This is no doubt the goofiest looking Minecraft player that I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes. Why does he look like the nerd emoji in Minecraft? Well, maybe I shouldn't be making fun of this player any longer, because out of nowhere, he gives the runner a full stack of diamonds. But not only that, he also starts giving him emerald blocks. This guy might not be so funny after all. And this random player gives the runner one final item, which is called the Wither Blade. Oh my gosh. Alright, I apologize for calling this guy goofy. He just gave the runner one of Minecraft's scariest weapons. So, after collecting a bunch of overpowered loot and absolutely demolishing a bunch of piglins, the runner continues throwing his gold at them and starts collecting items. And the runner actually gets insanely lucky, getting 16 ender pearls very quickly. But just like the runner did in the fortress, he doesn't leave the bastion after getting 16 pearls, and instead continues to throw gold at piglins. And this is incredibly strange too, as 16 pearls is far more than any speedrunner would normally need. Well, after wasting a few more minutes in the bastion, the runner finally decides to leave after he collects 28 ender pearls. Remember this for later. So, with more than enough blaze rods and more than enough pearls, a normal speedrunner would then build a nether portal and head back towards the overworlds. But there's just one problem, because despite getting some crazy items from this random player and getting a bunch of good trades from the piglins, the runner somehow didn't collect a single block of obsidian, meaning he now has no way to build another portal and can't head back to the overworlds. Well, the runner decides to head back into the bastion, where he comes across an ender chest, which first off, I don't even know how that spawned there, as ender chests can only spawn naturally in end cities. But secondly, how could this even help the runner? Because in Minecraft, all ender chests are linked together, which means that because he already emptied out the ender chest earlier in the speedrun, that means this ender chest will also be empty. Well, the runner still insists on opening the chest. You gotta be kidding me. He finds 10 pieces of obsidian inside, which is the exact amount he needs to build a nether portal. And I'm sorry, I have absolutely no idea how that's possible. So, using the obsidian he somehow got from the ender chest, the runner quickly builds another portal and spawns back into the overworld. And despite him cheating throughout the entire speedrun, he crafts Eyes of Ender, uses the process of triangulation, and locates the stronghold without an ounce of suspicious activity. But things are about to get a lot crazier, because when the runner sees the end portal, what? Alright, I've seen some big end portals, but this one is literally the same size as the end portal room itself. And remember how the runner has collected extra of both rods and pearls throughout the run? I think it's obvious he somehow knew this portal was going to be giant, and he was clearly preparing for needing a bunch of Eyes of Ender. Well, the runner starts filling in the world's biggest end portal, and trust me, I wish I knew how in the world the runner just managed to actually light it. Because after testing in my own Minecraft world, it's simply impossible to light a portal this big. Well, the runner jumps in Minecraft's most massive portal, where he finally spawns into the end. And while his spawn does look to be 100% normal, with the runner still being in survival mode, and without any potion effects in the top right corner, those are about the last two real things that happen in this speedrun. Because instead of finding the Ender Dragon in the end, the runner finds the world's largest alley? Wait a second, is this even possible? Look, this is the size of a normal alley compared to this giant alley. How in the world did this alley literally become massive? Well, I guess the world's largest alley must have freaked the runner out a lot, because he immediately sprints towards the edge of the end and jumps off. Click on screen now for more hilariously fake Minecraft speedruns.